Greetings, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
And we are the Gosslings. And thank you for indulging us. We were a little late coming on board today. We had an awesome 3-hour interview with Tim Cohen.
Yeah.
Author of The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, which will be airing next weekend.
Indeed it will.
And if you think it's... and we have echo from somebody's device.
It's my device.
Yep. Well,
I was watching the video right now, and
fresh out of the gate.
We like to smell our own fart, basically, is what that's all about. I was watching this as we were
definitely
doing
don't do it to game the algorithm.
No, no.
No, never. So, anyways, so we had an awesome 3-hour interview with Tim Cohen that will be, it probably have to be pretty heavily edited because we got a lot of really awesome exclusive content in there as we talked about depopulation. But you can always become a Patreon member and get the full access to the interview. But anyways, without any further ado, we could go ahead and get started. We got a bunch of people in the comments.
Yeah, we do have a bunch of people in the comments, and we're getting ready to do our toast here.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn the ticker on so you guys can, if you've never been here before and you don't know what this is all about, we're about to say our words together.
Yes. Say your words.
And while there's going across the screen, we got Gay Bello, we got Cactus Kicker, American in Cars, Tricky Subject, Chris Caps.
Nice.
Welcome. Good evening. Who else? I just want to make sure. Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Mike Fisher's on with us.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Thanks, guys, for waiting too. I know we're running like way late.
Yeah.
We just
That's how you know next week's going to be good.
Yeah, that's how you know it's going to be good.
It's when we run really late. And for anybody who's tuning in for the first time, if you're not familiar with who we are the Goslings. We are an interview YouTube channel and podcast, and we do interviews that strike down the darkness.
We are a dark lit digital speakeasy of free-thinking Christian authors who like to bring you interviews that strike down the darkness, as you will hear in our intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's do the toast.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then we'll do the obligatories. I'll lead this time.
Yeah,
I led last time, but I'll lead this time too.
Oh, okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that'll work.
All right. Grab your drinking vessels. Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
Cheers.
Cheers. You know, these are really cool mugs that one might be able to get from the Teespring page.
Are they not?
Yeah. But flanking old Leo here are another couple of interesting mugs.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second.
That might also need some attention.
But I'll mention those. But first, before I do, I would like to say, if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously. And for those of you who are already watching, if you would like this video, that'd be amazing. It'll help feed the demonic algorithm. Demonic algorithm.
Demaniac.
But if you guys would hit the like button for us, really, really appreciate that. And if you've not subscribed, please do. Take up the broken sword of your finger. Strike down the subscribe button. Hit the bell. Smack that bell so hard.
Yep.
And
smack it like it owes you money.
Yeah.
Keep your pimp hand strong.
And now we'll talk about the Kothon Spartan mug.
Ring it like Liberty.
Ring it
and
like
crack it.
Crack that bell.
Crack that bell.
Crack that.
Kill Tartaria.
Bell. The notification bell.
Anyways,
so this is the Kothon Spartan mug. This is handcrafted by Master Potter Joel Cherico from ChericoPottery.com up in Minnesota. He makes every single one of these by hand. They're beautiful, durable. These are essentially replicas of what the Spartan called the Kothon and carried with them. They were they didn't carry much.
Yeah.
They carried, as you can see from our guy here, they carried a banana hammock and
they actually carried
a
quite a bit.
Strap, a cape,
a
helmet. They got some cool soccer knee shin guards down here.
Greaves.
And a shield.
Yeah.
That's it. And a Kothon Spartan mug. For sure they carried. But he made this in collaboration with Stephen Pressfield, who is a bit of a subject matter expert, having written The Gates of Fire. And anyway, check him out. Go to ChericoPottery.com. Get yourself a Kothon Spartan mug. Drink like a man. Drink like a Spartan.
That's right. Yeah.
Kothon.
And like if you read Gates of Fire, you will find out that like this is actually incredibly anachronistic. Like the Spartans were heavy infantry, and they ended up like they had squires. They had helot squires. They wore 80 pounds of bronze and leather and iron and cloth. Like they were basically like medieval knights. They were more heavily armored than everybody else.
Yeah.
And they were like an impenetrable, intractable boulder in a path. Like that first part of 300.
They weren't dancing around like in 300, like Magic Mike with a spear.
Right. Yeah. 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 300 is, it truly is. It's a medieval magic or ancient magic Mike.
Mediterranean Mike.
Yeah. Mediterranean Mike. Yeah. Yeah. You can hear the party music. Oh, Thodos, fetch me the olive oil. I must be slick for battle. We call it pancration. But like the real Spartans were like mega based. They were like super high testosterone, ultra conservative, mega masculine, mega based, like hardcore dudes.
Do you think there was a Spartan that had kind of a gut?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably some had guts.
I mean, maybe
right?
like an older one, like a retired Spartan, Yeah. Yeah. But like they were like the heaviest hitting dudes.
We're getting some laughs from
out
that
there.
Mediterranean Mike.
Mediterranean Mike.
Melissa Rice joined us, by the way. Hey, good evening.
Hey.
Glad you're joining us as
thank
well.
you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to.
Yeah, before I get us in trouble. Yeah.
Let's go on to
Who
Kothon.
peeled all my grapes?
Let's talk about. Okay.
How
We
dare
are so
Xerxes?
off the rails right now.
Xerxes, you get back here. 2 million my Spartan fanny pack. I just hate 300 is all. I just want to like mock 300 constantly. So, but you know what looks awesome in 300? Gerard Butler's beard. And that's kind of what I go for.
There we go.
Here all the time.
Beautiful segue.
It's called a segue. Bringing it home. Bringing it home. Trying to salvage it. Trying to save myself. Courtesy of Mike Fisher's company, Giordani Jovanovic Hair and Skincare Products, made by real men for real men, or as I like to say, be as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money. Awaken your inner John Wick. What's the one? Nick's got the best one.
Give your better half a reason to doubt that.
I love it. It's awesome. Giordani Jovanovic Hair and Skincare Products. Everything from shampoos to face creams, lotions, beard pomade, beard oil, all sorts of stuff, even hair growth serum. Awesome stuff. Mike Fisher is a real sweetheart. He's a great friend of the channel, a friend of ours. And he runs that business, just him and his wife out of their home in Arizona, and a couple of Christian small business owners, and they deserve every bit of our support. So we like to give it to them whenever we can.
Absolutely.
And JiordaniJovanovic.com is the place to go. Go and check out their stuff. Buy some stuff for the man in your life or for yourself.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And we have an interview coming up that we're about to play for you guys. Let me get this a little closer. We interviewed the phenomenal Vicky Joy Anderson.
Yes.
Author of They Only Come Out at Night, Exposing the Dark Weapon of Sleep Paralysis. She talks about the Out of the Darkness conference and a couple other things. It was a phenomenal interview. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. We touched on SRA.
Yep.
Along with some other things related to that and demonic oppression and some of the things in our culture, some undercurrents that aren't obvious that we need to shed light on.
Yeah.
And you guys are really going to, many of you are patrons and you guys have seen the full interview on Patreon. If you're not, go over to Patreon, sign up. You can see all that exclusive extra content, but we're going to play the first half of our interview with Vicky Joy here in just a second. And man, this is the second time we've had her back.
Yeah.
And she's twice as cool. She seems like.
Yeah.
She's just a joy to speak with.
She lives up to her name. That nominative determinism thing is definitely in play with Vicky Joy Anderson.
I'm always all of our guests are, they're all phenomenal people. But sometimes you walk away just feeling stupid. Like, she's so intelligent and sharp. Like her method of thought.
Oh yeah,
is so impressive.
She has a really cool analytical mind.
Man, yeah, and she's an exquisite writer too. I mean, if you buy her book and read, it's really, written almost like prose, like smooth prose. It's really nice.
And she's got a great story. She's got a great testimony. About all the stuff that she overcame when she was little, and she's just a lot of fun. Like, I come away from conversations with her feeling grounded a lot of times. Like, she's just kind of like, she's very authentic, which is like sort of a hallmark of what we do here. We're authentic. Our guests tend to be very authentic, and we kind of strive for that authenticity, and it really is like, what you see is what you get, and it's fun. It's cool. Like, nothing about Vicky is like manufactured or, putting on airs or anything. Like, it's a good, honest, fun time. And she's fun. Yeah. Like, Vicky is just like cool to talk to. Yeah. 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 She's not like, just like, oh, so zoned in on her thing, like, you can talk Tommy Boy with Vicky. Yeah.
And we did.
So anyways, yeah.
We'll be in the chat hanging with you guys. Anything else before we jump into it?
I just want to give a shout out to Gabriel Bello Music with so far the winning comment, Leonidas Bigelow Grecian Gigolo. Which Vicky would have found that hilarious, by the way. That's the other thing. Like, Gabriel Bello Music. Gabe is a good friend of ours, and he has an amazing channel. Everybody should go check out his channel as well. So, anyways, without further ado, but not until after you're done watching this, or maybe pull up a separate tab under another Google account and watch both at the same time.
Man, not a bad idea. All right, here we go. Vicky Joy Anderson. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll be back halfway through.
Yep.
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Well, I want to ask you our patrons question.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have patrons at a certain level that we give them the opportunity to forward a question to our guest. And this is by our patron, American Cars.
Yeah.
And he says, Vicky, what were some of the best resources you found when researching spiritual warfare? I'm still not clear on what the spiritual realm can and cannot do, and what we as children of the Lord can and cannot do in response. What are our authorities, etc.?
Yep, that's a great question. By way of like stuff to put on your bookshelf, I would recommend anything Greg Reed, and that's R-E-I-D, not R-E-E-D. Greg Reed is the old guard. He was there in the 80s. In fact, his work, the things that they were exposing, his team were exposing in the 80s, is what necessitated the whole satanic panic movement. They were making so much progress in exposing the underbelly of generational Satanism that they had to come in and do a cleanup. And so that's how satanic panic came about. And my theory is anytime, whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter what you're trying to get someone to believe. If you have a cute little rhyme, you win the game. So if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Satanic panic, it rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
And then anyone who thinks on the opposite side of that rhyme is just a fool. So unfortunately for us, panic rhymes with satanic. So we kind of lost that round. But Gregory Reed was behind that. He's written many books and he is an expert in that field. One thing, and this is, I got to be careful how I say this because I'm not asking people to, grab their torches and be looking for trouble. But a lot of what I learned about spiritual warfare, I learned firsthand going through it. And I think that sometimes we're going through spiritual warfare, and because we're not as sober-minded and vigilant as we are supposed to be, we don't even recognize it. There's a lot of what I would maybe call low-level spiritual warfare that we just think, this is where the enemy is brilliant with the condemnation he puts in our head. Something will go wrong on our life, and he'll get us to believe, well, I deserve that because I did such and such. I went out and I had sex when I was a teenager, so I deserve this. It's a consequence. And so he completely deflects the fact that he's needlessly tormenting you, and with a word, he would have to go away by you thinking this is a burden I have to bear because I sinned. And so I think even just becoming aware of the low-level warfare in our life and learning just firsthand how to pray against it, you learn what works and what doesn't work when you're applying it in your own life. There is way more to be learned about spiritual warfare in the scriptures. I think a lot of people, they go for these glossy covered books with, the dragons and the demons and the beasts and the Baphomets on the front. And then we neglect the Bible because we think, well, other than Ephesians 6 and maybe a little bit in Revelation and Daniel, like it really doesn't talk a lot about spiritual warfare. But, the Bible is a handbook on spiritual warfare. It is a cosmic war from the time that the serpent shows up in the garden until the very last chapters of Revelation. You have spiritual warfare going on in everything. And so I think that going to scripture every day and reading it with the aid of the Spirit of God and carefully reading it and asking the Spirit to guide, and I don't like the word illuminate. I know that that's what we're supposed to say. The Holy Spirit's supposed to illuminate what you read, but that is such a charged word now, and it's such a—
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's been hijacked by the New Age, and I'm not so sure I want anybody illuminating anything for me. So I don't really like that word, but you pray as you read the scriptures, and we have to start looking at the scripture like steak. I always tell my dad loves steak, and he always wants to go to steak restaurants. I hate going to steak restaurants. And he's like, this is like the best food on the planet. It's expensive. It's fancy. Like, why don't you want steak? And I'm like, it just takes too long to chew it. Like, I'm just lazy. Like, I just want a nice comfort food. But, you have to take these little bites, and then you have to chew and chew and chew. And that is what scripture is. And we have turned the Bible into mac and cheese. We've turned it into something that we can just shovel into our mouth, and it's soft, and you don't even need teeth. You just mush it with your palate and like chug it back to the beverage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have turned the Bible into mush. We've turned it into comfort food, and we have to bring it back to the point where this is a filet mignon, and we're not going to chug this down because it costs $30 to $40, and we want to taste it. We want to savor it. We want to smell it. We want to take bites. We want to chew. We want to get every ounce of flavor out of it. When we turn the Bible into mac and cheese, we miss the point that there's a lesson in demonology and spiritual warfare and how to equip ourselves to work against the devil in every page. And so there's great resources out there. It's like, hey, go to the Shatter the Darkness website of Russ Dizdars. Go to Through the Black. Go to Greg Reed. There's great things out there. My friend and colleague Colleen James, she has a book called The Lie Effect, and if this is an excellent book if you're an SRA survivor. Great things in there about prayers and spiritual warfare in the modern day and what they're doing with the technology and things to pray against. There's great resources out there. But if you're obtaining those resources to the neglect of the scripture, you're getting pre-digested food. You're getting the food that somebody else chewed first. Yeah. So this is like a bird that chews its food and spits it into the mouth. So I prefer a steak that no one's previously chewed. So we go to the scriptures first, and we don't ever overlook the fact that the Bible has something to say on every topic that is relevant to our Christian walk. And so we might have to dig deeper. I love that little adage. I went to a church once where it was hanging up in the church library. If you rake, all you get is leaves. If you dive, you might get pearls. And it's the fact that diving requires training, certifications, expensive equipment, knowledge, patience. If you want the pearls, you're going to have to invest. And if you just want to get up every day and do your 5-minute devotional or listen to a sermon on your drive to work while you're thinking about 1,000 other things and distracted with the traffic, you're going to get a bag of leaves. That's great. You raked and you got the bag of leaves, but all you got at the end of the day is the bag of leaves.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And this is something that here you touched on something that drives me nuts. And I'm not going to name any particular church, but in many churches that I've been in, it's been very, you can call it surface level. We're going to open the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about the most surface level. It is what it says, right? Just take it at face value. It is what it says. And you don't have to think any farther beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of almost like taking a passage of scripture and just being milquetoast about it.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm thinking it means, there's so much context to this.
Mm-hmm.
There are prophetic passages related to this. I mean, there's more, and we're not diving deeper. It's like, and I think I think churches do that because they want to kind of, in a way, tailor the presentation to unbelievers or new believers,
Right.
and they don't want to overwhelm them with
I
depth.
want it to be accessible.
Give them the depth. Throw it all at them.
Absolutely.
Give them the whole meal. Give them the whole steak. If it's too much for them, they can eat the broccoli.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think with pastors, and especially youth pastors, I think we have settled for this notion that people don't have a desire for that depth. And so we're giving them what we think they want. And I think that we have really underestimated how ravenous the appetite is for truth. Pilate asked it, what's truth? But I think even teenagers, it looks like they're more interested in their friends and their social media and all these stereotypes we have of them. If we actually fed the kids in our youth group with deep, profoundly theological concepts, it would awaken a latent part in them. And if we could show them the Bible through the eyes of Michael Heiser and L.A. Marzulli and Tom Horn, if we could show the scriptures through less of a 15th, 16th, 17th century liturgical view, and if we brought out the supernatural aspects of it and we started showing them who God really was and what this unfolding redemptive plan really meant and how it pertains to them, I think that these kids would eat it up. And so this idea of keeping people happy by giving them almost nothing. Another thing that I think has been a very subtle shift, it's almost been unnoticeable, and it's happening in the pulpit and it's happening in our worship music. And that is that it has a sense of being very biblical and very spiritual because Jesus's name is being used, God's name is being used, scripture is maybe being quoted here and there, but the crux of what's being talked about is man-centered rather than God-centered. And so what you're really getting is a moral lesson. I'm approaching my congregation as a pastor on the assumption that everyone in the pulpit is going through a rough time, and there's financial issues and there's marriage issues and there's kid issues. So I am going to be a glorified group counselor this morning, and I'm going to cherry pick scriptures to help comfort this extremely depressed, broken, apathetic group of people. Mm-hmm. And what doesn't happen then is people leave with the Band-Aid because all that's really been spoken about is man, which is not an inspiring sermon. If we could forget about ourselves for 40 minutes a week, okay? You've got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If on Sunday morning you could just let the pastor for 40 minutes, we're not going to talk about you or your problems or your life. We are for 30, 40, 60 minutes, however long your pastor's sermon is, we're going to focus on the power, the presence, the love, the nature, the character of God, his plan, his will, what he's unfolding. If we could catch a vision for the magnitude of who this God is, and pastors, you can get away with it. People that are coming to church expect to hear church stuff. Like, it's not like they're going to get up and walk out because you pulled a Bible out. They're there voluntarily. So put them aside. If they want to come to a Wednesday night worship service, or they want to come to a marriage counseling session, or they want to join a small group and commiserate with one another, that's great. That church exists for that too. But on Sunday morning for 30 minutes, can we just stop talking about us for 30 minutes? Can we open the word and focus on God? 30 minutes a week. It's all we're asking.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like a healthy escapism. It's the same reason why people go to the movies. You know, you go to the movies, you go to see Top Gun 2, which is awesome, because you don't want to like think about your day job, which sucks, you know, or you don't want to think about like your health, which sucks, you know, or you don't want to think about your family, which sucks, you know. So like, you know, and so we all go to those things. And like, if you really kind of like boil it down, there are these weird Venn diagram overlaps between going to a movie and going to church. You know,
there are.
Especially if you can use the same approach of escapism, but it can be something nutrient dense. You know, it's not an empty calorie fantasy escapism. It's a healthier kind of escapism. And
I don't know, kind of like a Sabbath.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, the S word.
What do you know?
Weird. It's like we've come all the way back.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That was abolished, you guys. You know.
How dare we?
Well, Lord's Day, it's the new Sabbath.
We have 9 commandments now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's better than having 11 commandments, as Vodi Bakum puts it, which is, you know, the 11th commandment is be nice. You know, thou shalt be nice.
Oh gosh, that's a tough one there. I'll stick with the 10. Oh no, I like what you were saying though, Jonathan, because I think with this escapism thing, and I've lamented that and talked about that myself, that when we preach an easy believism that is very easy for someone, especially someone who's emotionally distraught or broken, to receive, if you preach an easy believism, that might fail when the faith is tested or things get really rough. I know back in the Johnny Erickson Tata, the quadriplegic who has a ministry out of Southern California, when she was 17 years old, she prayed and asked God, I want to take you seriously. I want to really love you with all my heart. I really want to get closer to you. And this is her words and her theology. This isn't me saying it. She had a diving accident and broke her neck, you know, and I don't want to say that this is what God does. Hey, you pray to be close to him and he's going to put you in a wheelchair. Don't hear me saying something like that. What I'm saying is there is no way we could ever tell a potential convert who we want to pray that magic prayer. There's no way we could ever stress enough to them the price tag that comes along with that prayer. Okay. It is a tough pilgrim's progress walking with the Lord. And so when you appeal to a broken person in a moment of great need, and you're blasting worship music that can be very manipulative if used properly, and your dopamine is releasing from their heads because all these drums are going and the bass is coming up through the floor, and you're only promoting the wonderful out of context promises, and it's that Jesus is going to be your best friend forever and he can do all things, and if that is what people are signing up for, and 6 months into the journey, that's not what they're getting, this is where you see this falling away of people and this idea that God has failed them, because for them, and it's not their fault, it's the way it's being presented to them, the church and that community and that sense of belonging and the excitement and the thrill that comes out of that initial coming to Jesus moment, if all that is theological psychotropic medication, where it's gonna wear off. It's gonna wear off. And so I think that with the church and all of the bells and the whistles and the fog machines, at some point we got to just get back to the keep it simple.
Yeah. It's funny. Gabriel Bello says the same thing. The saxophone musician friend of ours,
Gay Bello Music.
Yeah, dude, and he lives it. He's in churches all the time playing, and he sees it everywhere. Pete from Creepy Little Book says the same thing. That's like one of his biggest points of contention with the church, is just how it's like a concert with Starbucks, an emotional catharsis.
Yeah.
John Howler talked about it with the Asbury thing, and maybe that's being reductive. Obviously there's probably some truly transformative experiences going on in those things, qualifiers, but
can I ask what your opinion of Asbury is?
Oh yeah.
I really didn't follow it much, and so I don't really know what was going on, but what I will say is, with things like that, we'll know by the fruit.
Yeah.
When will this fizzle out? If it does, there were all sorts of things being said at the time and even now about all of the downsides to the Jesus movement of, the 1960s as well. Mm-hmm. And, there might have been a lot of people that fell away after that or whatnot. But the fact is, it's 25 years later and there's a whole church movement that came out of that. And so there was some fruit. And I kind of think of it too, like 9/11. Remember how churchy everybody got after 9/11, and everyone, and it didn't last much more than 6 months, and it was gone. It fizzled out. And so it's never easy to tell in a moment whether or not something was effective or not. And we know that even if it was something of the devil, God can use whatever he wants for good. And so I'm just holding out for the fruit. I want to see the fruit of it. And are disciples going to come out of it? Because this is the thing. We have reduced the Great Commission to how many people sign a card or how many people raise their hand. Anyone on given the right set of circumstances on the right day, you could get Aleister Crowley to pray that prayer. I'm not facetious. Right. Given the right set of circumstances on the right day with the right person, when all the planets aligned, you could get anyone to pray that prayer. Yeah. And so this measurement, this measuring rod that we use of how many people signed a card, how many people came forward, how many people raised their hand, what the Great Commission is about is making disciples. And those disciples replicate by then making their own disciples, and disciples who have been taught all that Jesus commanded and are walking in those commands. So at the end of the day, if 40 billion people on the planet all of a sudden prayed a prayer or gathered in their town squares and worshiped God, not that God couldn't glean glory out of that, but is that the same thing as long-term discipleship and fruit? So I don't really know. I don't have a firm opinion one way or the other because I didn't really follow it. But we'll know by the fruit.
Very wise answer.
Great question.
Honestly. You had mentioned Russ Dizdar's Shadow of the Darkness. They kind of actually was a question I was going to ask you. America in Cars, the one who had the Patreon question, he and I were talking earlier today, and he had mentioned Russ Dizdar, and I had never heard of him before. Apparently he wrote a book called The Black Awakening, Satanic Super Soldier, or The Rise of Satanic Super Soldiers and the Coming Chaos. we've been kind of dancing around a lot of this, talking about chaos magic in the Patreon exclusive. We're talking about, you had mentioned Shatter the Darkness. We were talking about the Satanic Panic. And Russ Dizdar, if I remember from my conversation correctly, he and his wife died within a week of each other last year. They were based out of Georgia. What they were talking about in that book, what are your thoughts on that? And is there a correlation to what they were talking about with the trafficking and the SRA and the sort of MK Ultra-esque super soldier thing that they are kind of building? And what are your thoughts on SRA?
Yeah, absolutely. Loaded questions, but we'll take one at a time.
I know. I'm mad about that.
Russ and Shelley Dizdar, they were actually out of Canton, Ohio. And
Ohio. Okay.
Yep. And they died within 2 weeks of each other. And interestingly, for those who travel in these circles, Rob Skiba died. 2 weeks later, Russ died. 2 weeks later, Shelley died. At the same time that this was going on, Steve Quayle was near death. Tom Horn was in the hospital near death. And there was a lot going on there.
So there was a blitzkrieg basically going on against these people.
Absolutely. It was crazy. And this was 2021. So we're still in all the COVID nonsense and all this stuff. So this is going on. And October is a huge month of occult rituals and activity, not just with Halloween, but there's all sorts of occult activity. There's reverse Halloween. So things really get started on October 13 all the way up to the 31st. And then you've got the old Celtic Samhain and, all this stuff, right? So anyway, Russ and Shelley passed. Now, what Russ was sort of known for, what he did well, was he did a lot of cold case occult crime. And he worked at one time with the Canton Police Department training the officers in occult crime. And he had access to cold cases, and his team, it used to be called SIIU, and they've rebranded now since his death, and they're the Shatter Ops team. And the Shatter Ops team is actually teaming up with the Through the Black team at the end of this month, March 31st, in Brookville, Ohio, which is in the Dayton area. And the Shatter Ops team and the Through the Black team will be putting on the Out of the Darkness conference. And we're going to be there. Greg Reed is going to be there. And we're going to be doing freedom encounters there. There's going to be great speakers there and breakout sessions. But I just want to put a shout out to anyone listening. If you want freedom from any of this stuff we're about to talk about, any sort of ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, demonic oppression, sleep paralysis, any of that, we are there. We have counselors set up in back rooms to meet with and pray with and do deliverance with people. So if you go on to the throughtheblack.com website, right there on the homepage, you can click on the Out of the Darkness icon. I think tickets are around $50, give or take. The tickets are very affordable. And so check that out if that's of intrigue to you. But Tom Dunn, who runs Through the Black, who's my co-host, we do shows. Well, Through the Black has shows 6 nights a week, Sunday all the way through, Monday through Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern on Through the Black 2, which is a YouTube channel. And Tom, to get back to the topic at hand, Tom was personally mentored under the tutelage of Russ Dizdar. They knew each other for many, many, many years. And Through the Black is a adjunct of that. Tom then spread out on his own. This is what we were talking about minutes ago, making disciples. And then the disciples going out. Like, you don't stay in your little comfort zone with your mentee, then you are equipped to go out and influence where you're at. So that's how Through the Black came into being.
Cool.
But the book Black Awakening is very specifically talking about the super soldiers. So this goes all the way back to the MK Ultra days. This goes back to Hitler and the Ubermensch, the Superman, that they were the kind of the precursor to the transhumanism movement. And so the rise of the super soldiers, and that is this idea that those in the generational Satanist underground have been doing these mind control rituals and have been programming an entire army of individuals. So these super soldiers are people who basically have been MK Ultra'd, for lack of a better word. Some of them might be aware of the fact that they're a super soldier, some may not. There's embedded triggers. A lot of them know foreign languages. They don't know they know. Almost.
Oh, wow.
The old guard, I think we're on either the 4th or 5th generation of generational Satanists who have been in this program. In the past, every single programmed person could speak fluent German. And so one of the old tests for determining whether or not someone had alters or, dissociative identity disorder is if you triggered them, they would be able to speak German. So that was kind of one of the giveaways in the past. But anyway, these super soldiers, here's the theory. The theory is that when the time is ripe and the Antichrist hits the scene, that it's like a fifth column idea. So in the old days of warfare, your enemy could come from the north, the east, the south, or the west. But the most dangerous of all was the fifth column, and that was the Trojan horse. That was when the army was
among you.
It was among you, and you didn't know it. And so when the war shofar went, they're right there. That you don't. It doesn't matter. You don't lock the city gates. They're in there with you. And so basically, when this time comes to fruition, and this is where the enemy is unfortunately way more equipped and pre-planned out than the church. Yeah. The church's plan is when the crap hits the fan, I hope that shofar sounds and I get sucked into heaven by the heavenly Hoover, right? That's our plan, is we're going to get sucked off the planet and not have to deal with it. But meanwhile, the Satanists, and I'm talking about the underground people you would never know are Satanists. These are not the people running around in black nail polish with their Megadeth t-shirts. Those guys are jokes. Those guys are dabblers. A real Satanist will never let you know. You'd never suspect it. The underground generational Satanists, they're the ones preaching at your Baptist church. They're the ones leading your Bible study. They're the ones teaching your kids Sunday school. And I'm not joking. That's where they are. Yeah. And so the underground church, the underground satanic movement, they have been working on this for a millennia, and they are prepared. They have an army ready to go. And when the time is right and they are triggered, this is the plot line of the Black Awakening. And good luck getting your hands on a copy of that now.
I tried. I can't
find it. I
spent like an hour today scouring the internet, and I mean, truly, like a full hour.
Yeah.
Digging through the internet. You cannot find one. It's definitely one of those naughty books.
Yep. If you got $800 or $900 burning a hole in your pocket, you can find, one or two here and there. But yeah, so, but the plot line of the Black Awakening is that when the Antichrist says go, these latent super soldiers are going to wake up. And all of a sudden, we're going to have potentially millions of triggered, armed, and dangerous, mind-controlled, under this satanic influence, people who can kill and destroy. And just think of the power that, like, did you guys ever have to see those movies in health class when you were in high school, where they were showing like police footage of guys getting arrested who were on LSD, and they had like superpowers, and it would take like 10 guys to hold them down, and they get shot like 5 times, and they're like, this is just a hint of what we are dealing with here. And because at this point they are, in addition to all of the mind control and the programming and the training, they also have a demonic base. They're a vessel for some sort of demonic force as well. And so you potentially, what do you want to call it? A demon, an entity, basically all of the disembodied Nephilim from antediluvian days find a vessel. Now they got this body, this willing vessel. And so it's humans, but they're of superhuman strength, and they're probably some sort of demonic or Nephilim type of soul put into that, entering into that body at that point. And so, so if the church doesn't get gloriously raptured before any of this happens, we better have a plan B. You know, when scripture says to be prepared, that means that the rapture is a great idea, but what's plan B? You know, no army is going to go onto foreign soil with one plan that's going to work perfectly. So the Bible is an extremely militaristic book. It's a military handbook, as Jamie Walden points out perfectly in his book, Omega Dynamics. But there is so much military language in the scriptures, like the Great Commission, even commission, like that's a military term.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why there's so much military language in this book, and so much about preparation and sober-minded, and so much information on who our enemy is, and so much tactical information on warfare, like in Ephesians 6. Why is all that there if we're going to just get sucked up into the sky and not ever have to face any sort of trouble? And I'm not trying to push some sort of pre or post trib. I actually have some ideas about that would really not fit into any modern eschatological context, because I don't think that it's as simple as pre or post. But, you know, without digressing into a complete and utter mind swamp known as Vicky Joy's head, what I'm saying, I'm not trying to make a point of pre or post trib. What I'm trying to make a point of is, if we glom onto any eschatological theory, and that's the one and only thing that we're going to believe and nothing else, then we are not obeying the scriptures that tell us to be prepared, because preparation means you have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I mean, even in our house, we have all sorts of plans for, like, what if there's a fire in the kitchen? We'll do this. But what if the fire's in the basement? Well, then we'll do that. Or you know, what if someone breaks in and my mace is all the way upstairs in my bedroom? And what do I do if someone breaks in and my handgun is locked in a safe that I can't ever get open because I can't fumble the lock? And so no one who feels that their life is being threatened would come up with one plan and not think of every single window or door that enemy could come in. So I don't really care what people believe eschatologically. I don't get upset when people say one thing or that. I don't have enough energy at this point in life to bicker with every single person as to when they think Jesus is coming back. What is of importance to me, though, is that we're commanded to be sober-minded, vigilant, and prepared. Yep. And so being prepared means I'm going to a picnic on July 4th, and I'm going to bring my picnic basket and my boombox with all my favorite music and my Frisbee and all the food I like and my cooler full of beer. And it's not going to rain, because that would ruin it. And I don't like rain. And so I'm not going to bring an umbrella, and I'm not going to bring a tent. And I don't like ants and bugs all over. So I'm not going to bring bug spray, because I don't like them and I don't want them to be there. That's not preparation. Preparation means, ideally, I want this picnic to be wonderful, but I'm going to bring the bug spray in case there's a whole bunch of bugs. I'm going to bring the umbrella in case it rains. We have all of these things. Everywhere we go, we're bringing suntan lotion and umbrellas. And so you're going to prepare more for a family picnic than you're going to prepare for Satan coming back to the planet to kill us all? I mean, come on, we got to think this through, guys.
Yeah, I agree. You hear that, people in the comments who glob onto one eschatological theory and just demonize everybody who doesn't fit in that box?
Rapture fight 2023.
I mean, these people are just like ruthless. I've never seen Christians being so just cold-hearted to other Christians because they don't share the same idea as to when the rapture happens, when the big Hoover suck happens. You know, I mean, be prepared. That what you just said, there's so much reason in what you just said. If you believe it's going to be whatever pre-trib, great, but be prepared, because what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Are you prepared? Or are you just going to completely fall apart and not know what's going on and walk away? You know, and the reverse is true as well. I'd rather be prepared and get Hoover sucked before everything happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Than not get Hoover sucked and then not be prepared.
Yeah. Not have any kind of a plan.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
Well, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a lot of other ways that society can be like heavily destabilized outside of just your rampant PCP AR blasting, possessed bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys can go around, and there are water treatment plants, there are power grids, there are food supplies, railways, there are all sorts of things that you can do to disrupt, destabilize, fifth columnists, fifth generation warfare, and the notion of fifth columnists, it presents itself in a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
And that's like where that whole prepping community like actually comes in handy, and where like being a 2A proponent like really comes in handy, because like, yeah, dude, all that stuff.
What
if yeah, and it's better to like spend the money on something that's just gonna like collect dust.
I need more ammo, by the way.
Then and I think that's a lot of like the mass shooters and school shooters that we see. Whether they're actually the people that get arrested or not is a whole other thing. But I think there are a lot of demonically possessed entities in the alphabet soup agencies of our government that are going around doing a lot of wet works. I mean, look at Ruby Ridge and Waco. And not that like David Koresh was an awesome guy or anything, but I know whose side I was on.
Well, if you're the enemy, if you had soft targets high up in these agencies or high up in the government, why wouldn't you go after them to try to influence them, possess them, control them? I mean, why would you not want to?
Well, it's like
yourself at those levels.
Vicky, did you ever see season 1 of True Detective?
No.
Oh, you would love it. It's amazing, and they kind of touch on this before this stuff was really popular. There's a character in there who is a preacher, and he very much is like exactly what you're talking about. He's an undercover Satanist, and he's like the biggest preacher of the biggest mega church. He's kind of a Kenneth Copeland type, and he's like secretly doing these satanic child sacrifice rituals, out in the woods. And I mean, look at Bohemian Grove. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This stuff will turn you into Alex Jones before you.
I know. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what's fascinating to me to kind of tie all this in with what we were talking about previously with the eschatology is many people, Christian and non-Christian, in the last 3 years, definitely, but even in the last 10 years, we have had this aha moment that a lot of what we have believed our whole life about the government, about the church, about the Bible, has been total deception, has been lies, has been cover-ups. And so we're open to the fact that, the whole entire Democrat-Republican system of government might be just a big, triggered, rigged hoax. We're willing to believe that, Washington, D.C. was set out with, Illuminati symbols and the obelisks of Osiris and all this. Like we're willing to see that Washington might have been a Mason and Ben Franklin was a pervert. And, so our whole entire concept of our country, and now there's all this stuff coming out about authentication and maritime law and all of this stuff where Federal Reserve Bank and 9/11 and the sinking of the Titanic and JFK, all this stuff, right? So if we are open-minded enough to think, okay, maybe I was absolutely wrong about the entire history of my country, the entire economic system here, and even the whole church and some of the roots of Catholicism and Christianity, if you take the roots all the way back, there's a lot of Mithra in there. There's a lot of Roman stuff in there. So if we're going to come to a place where everything's been shattered, the paradigm has been shattered, we realize a lot of this has been smoke and mirrors. then why is eschatology that one thing that's never been touched and has never been affected and has never been corrupted? Why is this? Why are the very limited eschatological, buckets that we've been told it's either this, or this? Why are those somehow sacred? Because those sort of things were not always preached, and we preach Revelation through 21st century, very post-Stoic, postmodern Christian eyes. That was not written by a postmodern American. That book was written by, a Semitic man who lived in a completely different century. And so the idea that I love is, this goes back to, I think, some of the stuff we were talking about in the stuff that's only going to be available for the Patreons. And that is fear of man will get you every time. Fear of man. So if my entire eschatology is really rooted in, I'm afraid to die, I'm afraid to be tortured. If every single thing that we read in the Bible has to somehow bend to the fact that I'm never going to get hurt, a hair on my head is never going to get singed, I'm never going to break a nail, if that's our doctrine, then we're not going to be open to some of the other clues in Scripture. And God has never been real black and white, from what I can tell. There seems to be nuances. Like, even take the Red Sea. We can either drown in the sea or get killed by Pharaoh's army, because we can go forward or we can go backward. We have been groomed into a dualistic view of the world. Everything is black or white, red pill or blue pill, Democrat or Republican, gay or straight, man or woman. We've been forced into this two-dimensional world where God is operating in 1,000 dimensions. It's like this massive diamond with all these facets, and we haven't even seen half of them. But somehow we're putting God into this box where your son can return at one of 3 points in world history. And where in the world did that get written down? Where's that the rule? And so one of the things that I've liked to just explore intellectually and philosophically, this is just musing. I'm not going to put this in stone and try to find the ark to put it in. But my theory is more, what if the reason why pre-tribbers, mid-tribbers, and post-tribbers can all find so much biblical support for their view? What if the reason they can all find biblical support for their view is because all three are true? So let's go back to the military concept. In the military, when a war is over and the decoration ceremony is about to occur, it's not like everybody gets their participation award and everybody gets their silver star and everybody gets their purple heart. Your award ceremony is contingent upon what role you played in that war and what you accomplished. And we even see this concept on Judgment Day, like the Bema seat, which is the judgment. It's been so misconstrued. The Bema seat isn't a judgment seat where we all go to heaven and the jumbotrons get turned on and everybody sees, me stealing the chapstick and all the stupid stuff we did. The Bema seat is not a time of humiliation. This is a time where the people who have faithfully served the Yehovah Tsevaot, the God of the armies of heaven, are being rewarded for a sacrificial life of holiness. And by holiness, I mean they departed from Babylon. Okay. So this is an award ceremony. And even the word Bema seat, it was a reference to the Olympics, where you've got the gold, the silver, and the bronze medalists stand on that platform. Mm-hmm. That's the Bema seat. That's where you're standing to get your medal. And the Bema seat has positions for gold, silver, and bronze. This idea that every single Christian who's ever lived is going to all jump onto that top gold medal spot and be teetering on this thing and everyone's getting their gold medal. So when you look at the scriptures that talk about the end, we have references to people who die trying to defend the vulnerable. You've got the Jamie Waldens out there. You got the people with the spirit of a warrior. They're not going to stand for this. They're not going to live underground and drink their urine through a purification straw. They are going to go out in a blaze of glory on the battlefield, fighting for what's right. They're going to charge out there with their weapons. They're probably going to die trying, but they're going to die, and they're going to get that Medal of Honor. They laid down their life. They were the heroes. They get like the top honor. But then you've got people that the church is trying to make out to be like, these are the weak ones. There's ones that are tested for 10 days. And after the 10 days, they're beheaded. That's still a glorious position because you're a martyr. You get a martyr's crown for that. You get a martyr. You get the Purple Heart for that. It's a position of honor. And so then you've got people that are blessed because they remained till the end.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're all raptured, then we all remained to the end. So, but the people that remain to the end means that maybe there's a group of people that do survive, a remnant that survives through the flood, like in the days of Noah. 8 people survived that tribulation. Yeah. That was the Old Testament end times, end of everything. Everybody died. 8 people lived through it. So what if there is a group of people that do survive to the end, and they're not in some torture chamber getting their fingernails pulled out and being forced to drink their own urine? What if these people are being hidden in God? What if there's a hint here in Psalm 27 where it says that in the day of trouble, when war surrounds you on every side, he will set me high upon a rock. And this is after talking about being in his temple. What if there is some sort of dimensional atmosphere where there are people that are hidden to the end, like in the days of Noah, and they come through the end? What if this is they get the prize too, because they survived till the end? So here we have 3 different people, 3 different categories, all 3 of highly decorated military honors, because they all faithfully got their souls in the end and they survived. But we've got people that died in valor on the battlefield.
Yeah.
We have people who survived torture and gave up their own lives because the treasure buried in the field was greater to them than their life. Mm-hmm. And then we've got the people who remained until the end, hidden in Christ with God because they were his bride and his chosen people. All 3 highly, highly decorated people in heaven. So this limitation we've put on God by, you either have to rescue all of us so that one hair doesn't get out of place, or the only other option is that we're stuck down here as all the bowls of wrath are being poured out, and we're all going to experience this like torture. And what this does, and what I don't like about these categories, is it makes the entire church dread the coming of Jesus. You see what he has done here. We're supposed to be praying according to the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come. Every day we're supposed to be saying, thy kingdom come. So if every day we're doing everything in our power to stop the end times, let's thwart the enemy. Let's do everything we can to put an end to this and reestablish order in America and get our republic back. We're working against the Lord's Prayer there. We're working against our own creed. Thy kingdom come means that all hell breaks loose when he shows up. And if you're dreading the moment that, like lightning from east to west, our king comes and shows himself to save all of mankind from this oppression, if you're dreading that day, then there's something wrong with your eschatology. There's something you're not understanding. Because when he comes, evil is vanquished. And the next thing that happens, whether you have to suffer a little or you don't, the next thing that happens is you're on a bema seat.
Yeah.
With the God of heaven saying, well done, good and faithful servant. And he's putting a gold medal around your neck. And we have been taught as a church to dread that day. Yeah. It's a sin. It's a crime. It's a crime.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. That's such a good point. And it's so easy for us to lose perspective of that because we're too busy trying to move pieces on the chessboard.
Yep.
There you go, peeps. Not bad, huh?
And that is part A.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vicky can preach, can't she?
Yeah. Yeah. Vicky knows how to dispense truth, man. It's pretty powerful. She's very
awesome.
grounded.
Yeah.
You know? And she has great insights. So yeah, what'd you guys think? Cactus Kicker says she is a heavy hitter. Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Get the second part pulled up.
She knows, she knows how to not pull any punches, but she still articulates it in a really cool way.
You know what I like about her? She doesn't use churchy language.
Oh yeah, dude, no kidding.
She says it in a way that whether you've gone to church all your life or you're a
Mhm.
brand new believer or you've never been in a church, like it all makes sense. It all
Yeah.
sounds the same. It's not wrapped in that
Churchies.
churchianity.
Mhm.
Yeah, churchies.
Yeah.
Christianese.
Christianese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone needs to make like a joke dictionary of churchies.
Nicole asked, was this videotaped? We recorded it last week, and we divide the recorded interview into 3 segments. 2 of them we play back to back here on our live stream, and we're about to play the second part. And a third segment is usually reserved for just our patrons. There's an exclusive segment that we recorded just for our patrons. And you can go over there, patreon.com/the Gosslings. I mean, everywhere you get, whether it's Patreon, YouTube, or Instagram, just the Gosslings. You'll be able to find us.
Teespring,
Rumble,
Twitter.
Teespring,
yeah.
Twitter
And-
too.
And we do, and Twitter. We do that 1/3 thing for Patreon only. We don't put that behind a paywall just to put it behind a paywall. We do that because that's where we're able to talk about all of the things that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube without getting a channel strike.
Mhm.
So it kind of it became a necessity for us after we used to just do these live. We Bill O'Reilly'd it. We'll do it live.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple channel strikes. And then we were like, oh, we'll do it this way instead. And we can still ask the questions, that are like the hot button topics. We keep those over here. And then we have the main interview, which Nick edits throughout the week in between recording and airing. And then we have it split up into 2 sections. So this is our intermission to answer the question. And then we'll play the second interview here in a minute.
American Car says it's always worth it. It's the only Patreon I support. We appreciate that too.
Yeah,
Man,
dude, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate your support, and we're glad that this sounds so corporate. I'm glad you get a lot of value out of it. I'm glad you're enjoying
Please fill
it.
out this
And
brief survey.
Yeah. But it's awesome to interact with you guys and chat with you guys, and we all get to know each other a lot better in the Patreon as well. But it's cool, like on the live stream every week when we all get together to see you guys in the chat.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's like getting together. It's all we need is like a barbecue, maybe a fire pit, and we'd be good to go.
Don't tempt me. You know how much I want to do
And
this,
some
like,
not light beers.
Yeah. You know how much I want to do this, like outside around the fire pit, where I just have like
Would that be cool though?
a bottle of Lagavulin and a pack of Lucky Strikes. And I can just sit there and I can just watch this and Hunter S. Thompson it.
Yeah. Gabe asked, anyone heard from Ice Queen? We haven't heard from her.
No, you know what? We need to reach out to her. She's a little tough to get a hold of.
Radio sounds that she might be in transition.
Yeah.
To some degree, but I don't know. It'd be good to see her here again.
Yeah. If you're watching this on the back end, Ice Queen, we miss you. We hope you're all right. We're thinking of you. Reach out to us and let us know you're doing okay.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm ready for part 2.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys are too.
Yeah.
Anything else? Boss Hog is here with us. He's over there in the corner.
Yeah.
We'll have him on here after when we wrap up.
We'll bring him on whenever we're landing the plane. Whenever we're segueing out of here.
All right. Oh,
nice.
Mike Fisher.
Nice.
Oh man, thank you. Keeping it real.
Keep it real.
Yeah, thank you, man. We're trying to.
Yeah.
Your support is greatly appreciated. By the way, Mike Fisher's company, Jardani Jovanovich, you guys got to check it out. He is our sponsor. He makes an amazing product, hair and skincare products for men. for dudes.
Dudes for dudes.
Dudes' faces need love.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Mine
Hair
does.
care products made by real men for real men.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for the support. Always appreciate it. It's never expected, but it's always appreciated.
Yeah.
Really, really thank you for it.
Yeah. And it really helps us, be able to buttress against the coming storm of failing equipment. It's like
No, my
know?
headphones cut in and out like
I
through the
know.
whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna.
If you watch, actually, it was in that interview. If you watch, like, a lot of times, you'll probably see it on the back half. Like, my arm is down here. I'm not tickling Nick's kneecap
No.
or anything. Like, I'm adjusting the mic cord because my headphone mic always goes out. And we're trying.
We're trying.
So
yeah. My
all of that-
microphone has like a buzzing thing that just. I mean, you can't. Anyway,
all
we're
of that,
slowly refreshing things as we go.
all that Patreon money, all that ad money, all those super chats, they do not go to like a vacation home or a helicopter.
No.
they're being like compiled.
It keeps
into,
the things clicking. It
Yeah.
keeps the lights working and all that
pays for the
stuff.
subscriptions
Yeah.
to Zoom and Restream and all
Yeah.
the other stuff that we have to kind of like, I mean, it's true. It's just like any other business. You really you probably like don't start making money until, because we're 2 years in, 2
Yep.
plus years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we probably won't.
We've been
make
doing
a-
this for 2 years, and the first two, I mean, just over 2 years. The first 2 years, we weren't monetized.
No.
We were just,
But even then, we were still paying for it. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
all this
totally.
stuff, it all
Totally.
costs money. And
Yep.
so it'll probably be another year or two before we
worth
like
it.
start to break
You guys
even.
are totally worth it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
Chris Caps. Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome, dude. Super chat. Needed this tonight, bros. and
Good.
Chad. Man, thank you.
That's what we're here for, man. Honestly, that's the great thing about the live chat.
And I get that. I need it too. I like just reconnecting with my with my friends here every week.
Yeah.
And there isn't. I watch a lot of I follow a lot of YouTube channels, and you guys comment and get along way better than like
Yeah.
than like anyone else. I'm always afraid to go and comment because I'm afraid I'm gonna open my big fat mouth and get into an argument. So I
Not
just
me.
don't. I just don't comment anywhere because I just know I'm gonna regret it. But like with you guys, I mean, there's familiarity. I like chatting with you guys. So you guys make it special and fun. So thank you for that.
Speaking of which, Cactus has a hilarious joke.
What did he say?
Nick tickling. I'm just over here, Nick tickling.
Big Tommy.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Brother love.
Hashtag brother love.
All right. Enough with the. All right. We're gonna go ahead and play the interview now. I'm gonna turn off my camera for some more brother love. Give me a kiss.
They only come out at night, and demonic oppression, sleep paralysis. That's really your milieu, and that's really what you have done deep dives on. But we've been talking about SRA. How does satanic ritual abuse factor into all of the things that you have really studied over the past several years?
This was sort of a happy accident, I guess. I don't know. So when I was still living in Pennsylvania, and my dad was calling me and freaking out over this like amazing guy he just found, and it was Russ Dizdar. And he had gone to a couple conferences and met Russ and heard him talk. And Dad and Russ actually got to be friends, and we got to know Russ a little bit. But when Dad started getting into this, it was right after my mom had died, and I'm just like, I'm in deep grief. The last thing in the world I want to talk about is all this horrible, like, he was starting to tell me about, satanic ritual abuse and stuff. Like, this is not the time. This is not the time I want to absorb this stuff. And I had heard of it before, and so it wasn't like brand new. But eventually, I started going to conferences with Dad, and at one point we asked that inevitable question.
Is that right?
Why are we going to all these conferences? Because at some point we're accountable for this information. And if this is something God wants us to know about and have an understanding of, and giving us the ability to articulate it to others, at some point we're going to be accountable for all of this, knowledge that we're being given. And I thought about, oh my gosh, what if, oh no. Anytime you think that God might be calling you into some sort of deliverance ministry, your mind immediately goes to like The Exorcist with Linda Blair's head spinning around, and you're like,
Right.
putting yourself in people's bedroom with like, green, like pea soup flying all
Every
over.
day's a horror show.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, and because I had gone through so many years of sleep paralysis, which was a terrifying experience, my thought was, if I can't even really handle a sleep paralysis scenario where I'm just alone in my bedroom, how in the world, like, I'm not cut out for this kind of thing. Like, no way, man. And so it sort of freaked me out. And Tom Dunn and I ended up meeting through a mutual friend. And the first time I met him, I didn't think I'd ever see him again. And it's not like, oh, we hit it off and we were best buds the first time we met. It's like, I never expected it to happen. So through a stream of events over the course of 3 or 4 years, I started writing for Real Dark News, which is the sort of like the news site that is operated through the Black. And I just did that in silence under a pen name of VJ. And that was all I was doing, was just like, hey, writing is my gig. That's my gift God's given me. I'm going to have the luxury of just hiding in a corner with a pen name and leave me alone. That was kind of my
Nice.
my
Solid.
take, right? Exactly. So, so anyway, when it became apparent that God was actually calling me into this, I started taking a lot of the Rusty's Dark courses, all of which are free on the Shatter the Darkness website. You just scroll down to free training and hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of teaching. And a lot of it's on spiritual warfare, but he also, Russ was a pastor and he was a preacher, and his main heart was to preach the gospel. And so he's got stuff about the book of Acts and Revelation. He's got other stuff in there too, just amazing stuff. So anyway, that's how I first was introduced into like the deep dive of SRA and learned more about it. And so this is a tough topic to talk about because of the cognitive dissonance on behalf of the church. Nobody wants to believe this. Okay.
And some churches practice it.
Yes, that's true too. So when you start to speak about this, one of two things happens. The enemy wants to shut you down because they don't want to be exposed before the right time. So all the trolls come out with their empty threats and their nonsense. But then the church shuts you down. This isn't real. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. But what does happen every time is there is a third, much smaller group of people whose hearts awaken. And they're like, yes, it's horrible. And we don't need to go over every horrible graphic detail. But now knowing that this exists, I'm accountable in some way, whether it's intercessory prayer or all the way to doing counseling and ministry. And there's a whole bunch of gray area in between there. But it certainly wasn't what I was looking to do or get involved in. And I was willing from day one to do it, but I was very scared that I would be a sitting duck because, you think about all the horror movies you've seen, like all the vampire movies, like Salem's Lot and Fright Night, where the guy, like the preacher, brings out the cross and the vampire just crushes it and laughs at him and says, you don't have faith. And, and because every single person on planet Earth is a sinner, and there's so much stuff you don't have worked out in your own life, and you have guilt and shame over things, and you have rejection issues, and you have fear, and so you just think, well, I'm just going to be sifted like wheat, like I'm just going to be a target, And so I think that there was a transitional period where I had to get my sea legs, so to speak, and part of what prepared me and gave me courage and gave me an understanding that I was able to do it was some of the stuff that we were talking about in the Patreon portion of our discussion. And that is the things that God called me to do in 2020 and 2021, where I had to walk in faith instead of, I had to shut out all the voices of the fear of man. And there was a lot of things I was called to do. And I don't think I was called to do those things because I'm more spiritual or more holy or less. I think that God very specifically orchestrated 2020 and 2021 for me as a boot camp. It was where he was showing me that he would reveal things to me. He would tell me what to pray. He would give me the names of things that needed to be prayed against. He would give me courage. He would overcome the fears of man. And so I don't have a lot of pride in the things that I did in 2020 and 2021 because I was very scared through the whole process. And I see now in retrospect that God was actually training me for a ministry that had 2020 never happened, I would not be ready for. And so there were other things going on there. So I can go into like just the general definition of what SRA is, but I want to pause just in case you guys have something to add.
No,
No, go for it.
yeah, absolutely.
So SRA is basically, if you Google it, for the most part, you're going to find a lot of disinformation. You're going to find that this is false memory, and it is it's just satanic panic. So you're going to get a lot of disinformation that this doesn't exist, and there's going to be a lot of convincing arguments that is going to quell the fears, and the church is going to breathe a collective sigh of relief that it was just this big hoax put out there to scare people. But the fact of the matter is, it is very true, and it may not have always been called SRA, but this goes all the way back to the days of Cain, to antediluvian times. Like I said, they called it different things back then, but it's the same thing. And even though the word satanic is in there, SRA stands for satanic ritual abuse. There's also ritual abuse. And there are groups and societies that basically perpetuate this same agenda that might not be satanic. Because a lot of the SRAs, like true SRA survivors, are usually from generational Satanist families. It's a long, long, long bloodline. You're born into it. And so if you are taken, like if you are abducted and used in one of these rituals, it is ritual abuse, because even though, you weren't in the satanic ritual bloodline, so satanic ritual abuse and ritual abuse kind of go hand in hand, depending on if you're on the inside or the outside of the family, right? But it's not just card-carrying satanic families that are doing this as well. There are militarized versions of this. There are secret society versions of this. And it lies undercover even in the world of sex trafficking. There's a lot of this going on. And it also happens in the BDSM community, which a lot of people, thanks to the Hollywoodized version of 50 Shades of Grey, think that this is just a bunch of consenting adults having fun with whips and chains. But if you actually know what's going on in the BDSM movement in that community, it's in essence the same exact thing as satanic ritual abuse. It is women and men being groomed without their knowledge into this lifestyle in small baby step stages. And it involves high-powered people who are the masters. And it involves really all of the same activities and goals. So if you go into that thinking, oh, this will be fun, this is just this lascivious little group of perverts and we can do whatever we want, it at the end of the day, it has very little to do with sex and very little to do with pleasure, actually, as well. So if anyone else is interested in more information on that, Through the Black has had 2 recent shows where a woman has come out of that community and exposes the crap out of it. I mean, she doesn't hold anything back. And so I think the names of those shows are Chainbreaker, and I'm not sure. I've got it posted on my Instagram, but there's 2 shows where we've got her on there. I'll see if I can look it up real quick without distracting myself from what I'm talking about here. But anyway.
Well, while you're looking it up, what do you think? What is the goal of SRA?
So the goal, yep. So the goal, and this kind of plays a little bit into what we were talking about earlier with the Black Awakening. The goal is, this goes into the ethos of a generational satanic family. This goes all the way back. Read Gary Wayne's book if you've got a year. Gary Wayne's book, it goes all the way back into the days of Cain. It started with Cain. That's how long it's been around. Now, they didn't call it satanic ritual abuse, or probably didn't even call it devil worship back then, but it was the blood drinking cults of Kish. And the progeny of Cain, they were in basically the earliest iterations of secret societies, but they were dragon courts, they were blood drinking cults, and this is where we get some of our modern vampire mythos, but that is highly caricaturized. Obviously, the blood drinking that was going on in the days of Cain wasn't for turning people into vampires or making slaves. It had to do with immortality. We see this carried in today as we talk about the adrenochrome, because the reason why they're doing this is they want eternal life without the Messiah. They're coming up with their own ways. And so transhumanism and technology and this adrenochrome, this drinking of blood, it's a formula for immortality. It's eternal life without Jesus Christ. It's beating the system.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They want to beat the system. Now,
because
if you
never die, you never have to answer to God.
No judgment. Yep. And so this is given away in much more clarity in the book of Jasher. And it's talking about the days of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. I think it's in Jasher chapter 4, I think. And it gives a little bit more detail about what they were doing there in the Valley of Shinar, building this tower. In the Bible, in the biblical narrative, it just says, let us build a tower that reaches to the heavens. And that's all they give you. Or that's all that remains in our modern versions, right? In the book of Jasher, it says very point blank, in a way that almost mirrors the 5 I will statements of Satan in the book of Isaiah. It says that the purpose of this tower is, we will ascend to heaven. We will remove God from the throne. We will set up our own idols in the temple. We will worship our idols there. This Tower of Babel wasn't an architectural feat. This wasn't some sort of antiquated version of, let's build like the World Trade Center and see who can have the tallest building in the Guinness Book. This had to do with the fact that the mountains that had been used previously as Stargates, we know that God visited his people on the top of mountains where Moses was on Sinai. The reason he was able to visit with God on Sinai, God didn't just show up, in hiking boots and sit on the top of the hill. That was a dimensional portal on the top of Sinai. There was a dimensional portal on the top of Mount Hermon where the Watchers came down. There's probably still something going on up there because there's a UN base up there, and there's plaques up there that have very strange inscriptions about the gods and such. And so what this Tower of Babel was an attempt to build a mountain higher than the mountains that were naturally made. They needed a higher mountain. Maybe they hadn't figured out where Everest was at that point, or they didn't have the clothing and the long underwear for it, but they needed something taller than Hermon because they needed to get back into the throne room to overthrow and kill God. Yep. And I can get all sorts of freakish on you guys and talk about the Aramaic meaning of the word to lift up. the word Nasa, which is pronounced differently but spelled the same as NASA. Is this a modern passing of the baton of the ancient people to the modern people, where, hey, our little tower thing didn't work out, we need something higher?
Mm-hmm.
And if you even go to NASA's website and you look at their vision statement, it doesn't, it flat out says that they're seeking for knowledge for the betterment of mankind. It even has that word knowledge in it, like, you know, the tree of knowledge. And so there's something more going on here than building a tower and sending rocket ships into space. This is an agenda that goes all the way back to Cain. They were thrown from heaven. They were locked out. They lost their first estate. And they've been planning ever since to get back. I will ascend to the stars. And they want to get back into the throne room and retain that scepter of power. They want to rule the nations. And the long and the short of it is their goal that they think that they're going to accomplish out of their hubris is they're going to kill the pre-incarnate Messiah and now the Messiah. They're going to kill Jesus Christ. They are going to take those keys back from him. And so what the generational Satanists are, whether they realize it or not, they've been told they're part of this big whole age-long, you're special, you're chosen, you're the chosen people, we're going to rule the world. They've been told all sorts of grandiose, flattering things. Many of them probably are of the bloodline of those original cults of Kish and of Cain. And they're just passing the baton through the generations. They have a single-minded goal, and it's been the same from the beginning. We're going to get back into that throne room, and we're going to overthrow the Messiah, and we're going to rule this place. And so the generational Satanists are basically the thralls. They're the people that have been duped into carrying out all of this work because they're boots on the ground, right? A lot of these entities are disembodied. They're locked up in the abyss in chains. They're in the astral, and they can't really come down here. They can lure us up there, but if they come down here, they've already tried that once and they know what happens. And so they need boots on the ground to put infrastructure in place and to prepare the minds and the hearts of the people for their Messiah. And so the goal of all of this ritual abuse is to mold this perfect group of slaves to be boots on the ground for these entities that can't do the work themselves. And the reason why there's so much treachery and bloodshed and ritual torture and sexual abuse and crimes beyond anything I want to even get into on this program is because, to use Robert Monroe's term, the loosh, if you will, there is an unleashing of power, and there is an ability to open these energy fields, these portals, these stargates, whatever you want to call them. These things are opened and generated through revels, through bloodshed. If you go back to the Old Testament, why were the Israelites, when they got caught up in idols, why were they always getting busted with these massive like orgies and parties and drinking? And, you know, why was it simply just, this is a party? Hey man, like
Babylon working.
Yeah.
It's the blood orgy from Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, there's a reason why that stuff is so disturbing, because, well, A, it's so far beyond the pale, like no one ever experiences it, and B, like it probably works.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that whole BDSM thing, you know, I've known girls who, you know, were into that kind of stuff, and like it was always like, look, I'm not that guy. Like, I'm okay, thanks, you know. But I've noticed that like all that kind of stuff, whether it was straight or not straight, like all that stuff, it's not about the sex, it's not about the nerve endings, it's not about any of that. It's like this spiritual violative kind of thing that is like really about submission and compliance.
Yes.
but on a like really deep level. And every time I have any brush with Hollywood, like it on any level, and it's happened 3 times now, every single time there's always that element there. There's always this like exploitative, submissive, but it's not, even though it's a physical thing, it's obviously not physical. Like that's not where it stops, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how dangerous and potent it is.
They've weaponized sex.
Yeah.
So to the stupid human beings who think it's all just about the orgasm, don't understand. And we even know this on a small level, like take all the Satanist stuff out of it. We already know that soul ties are created through that. Yep. And anyone who's been through a bad breakup can attest to things like this. And there are physiological aspects to sex where brain chemicals are released, where there's a bonding that makes those sorts of breakups then even more difficult. There are also now some of this information has been run with, and it's been exaggerated and taken to an extreme, but they have done tests with flies of all things, and they've determined that there is genetic material in the man's sperm that a woman retains permanently.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
and permanently.
Yeah, it happens with women all the time. Yeah.
Yep. So it doesn't necessarily mean a full genetic code and a DNA sequence and all that. But what it does mean is that there's a chemical in a woman's brain that is only present if she's given birth to a male child or she's had sex. And you can see then if you test a virgin, she's not going to have this particular chemical in the brain. So what happens then, and what they've determined with these flies, with this fly experiment, is they take a female fly and they take 2 males, and they take a small fly and a large fly. So that's the way they tell the difference between the genetics, right? And so they will have one of the flies mate with the female, but then they'll have the second fly actually fertilize the egg. So he's the actual one like responsible for the offspring. And what they've determined is, so if a female fly mates with a large male fly, she will give birth to a fly that grows large. If you have a female that mates with a small fly, she'll have an offspring that turns into a small fly. So what they're recognizing through these experiments is, if she mates with a small fly, but a large fly fertilizes the egg, she has a small fly offspring. So the physical genetic code that's transferred to her offspring is not the one that fertilized her egg. Yep. It was the initial encounter. And so what they're learning from this is basically all of this to say is that there are physiological, mental, physical, and spiritual repercussions from that sex act. And so it's not just like the Bible said it's wrong, you're bad, you're a slut, you're a tramp, you're a gigolo. It's not about that was dirty, you should have waited till you were married. We don't understand the doors that get opened. We don't understand the complete power and ability that act has to even change who we are as a core person. We've all known those few people that have went off the deep end and had an addiction, and they don't end well, and so I think we have to get away as Christians from thinking that unwanted pregnancy and venereal disease are the only 2 consequences, and oh, God will forgive me, it's okay, I never got pregnant and I didn't get a venereal disease, so I dodged a bullet. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, because there are spiritual aspects of that where when you are performing it out of context, doors are opening. You might be attracting energies and entities that are attaching to you, and that might carry in the DNA. That might affect your children, who you give to. So I think we have to. I really wish we could get away from this sort of Victorian aspect in the church. We can't talk about sex in the pulpit, and when we do, it's just dirty and bad. And we're raising a whole generation of young kids who either don't know a thing about sex at all, or they're only told every day it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. What is going to happen? Like, let's say for a female, if you're a female who's been raised in the church and you've been homeschooled, and the only thing you've ever heard about sex is about, only slutty girls do that, and it's bad, and it's gross, and it's dirty, and it's a sin, it's a sin, it's a sin. What is that going to look like for that woman after 18, 19, 20, 25 years of being in that mindset, where all of a sudden she's married, and overnight, because of a piece of paper and a ring, now it's wonderful? And like, how do you get over that mindset? I really wish we were doing a better job in church of explaining the spiritual components on both sides of sex, because I think that we're doing so much damage to our kids by, on one hand, demonizing sex to the point where they are going to have trouble enjoying it even in the right context, or just making it such a topic of grace that kids don't understand that by the time they get to the wedding, it might already be destroyed.
Yeah, this is another one of those topics we were talking about, like in where you take something out of the Bible and you're not diving deep enough for people to really grasp why they need to be concerned about this, why this is relevant to them.
Yeah.
You just want to beat them over the head with it and tell them it's wrong.
Well,
and you're not going to get very far. They're still going to go out and mess up. They have to have a deeper reason to say no, or they have to understand why it's important.
Yeah, and it's so hilarious how, once again, science circles back to a deeper understanding of what the Bible has basically been trying to tell us all along. Like my former Ranger buddy, Nathan. We talk about this all the time, about like how, you don't want anything to do with a girl with a high body count. Yeah. Because like, I mean, truly, you know, because there is like this genetic component of exactly, like, they have run studies apparently on people now of like the fly test, and there is like a genetic component where like these women start to basically be mutants, for lack of a better word. Like, you can have mutant offspring, where you become mutants because you become like, a carousel of petri dish, of genetic material, and like, and God bless them. I mean, so many people haven't been taught anything better, and a lot of them, especially girls, have been, the victims of abuse. So like, there's this, that's the other thing about ritual abuse or any kind of abuse, is that it tends to like implant this deep-seated guilt and cognitive reframing to where you think like that's the only way you can operate. It's like, it's just as destructive as like a girl becoming a stripper, in the sense of like, you are meshing things that are not supposed to be, you're crossing the streams. And so that fly experiment, I mean, truly, like, it's and no one talks about it. Like,
no
one sit here and explain
it. We need to talk about fly sex.
I mean,
we talk about fly sex on the Gosslings.
Yeah, at least once a quarter. This is our quarterly fly sex talk. Yeah. This week on NPR with Vicky Joy Anderson, we're discussing fly copulation.
Fly Sex Conference 2023.
I could make a really crass joke about that right now with a little bit of
my goodness.
But I'm not going.
It's interesting too, how this also plays into the whole now popular Annunaki, we are your progenitors, thing that people are talking about, right? So if you look at it like as an example, in Braveheart, obviously, the whole human stuff, right? So when you breed something out and you become the majority, you then have the power, you have the scepter, right? So there is an aspect too where sex and breeding becomes a way of taking over power. We see this even all through antiquity with queens of one nation, or princesses would marry the kings, because it was a way of gaining more of the kingdoms and more power. And so marriage and mating and breeding has always been a part of world domination. And so I know we're getting into the realms of sci-fi here, but what's interesting to me, I was talking to my dad about this the other day, casual stuff you talk about over Mexican food, right? And I was saying to my dad, if what L.A. Marzulli and these people are saying is true, and that the great deception is that a UFO lands on the White House lawn and the Anunnaki come out and they say, we are your progenitors. Mm-hmm. Listen to this. Here's a twist. If the Watchers came down and they mated with women, and they are to a degree still around, these bloodlines that came back into effect after the flood through Nimrod, who became a Raphaim. And if these bloodlines of Cain are still in weaker iterations present on the earth, every time we intermingle with these bloodlines, that is then affecting that woman, her blood, her genetic input, her DNA, her offspring are now melding with those bloodlines. So if the Anunnaki have this prima nocta thing going on, where they're getting the whole world stirred up into a frenzy and go around and sleep with whoever you want and as many people as you want, and there's no consequences and don't worry about it, and you've got everybody jumping everybody, there is a point where when the Anunnaki say we're your progenitors, they're actually telling the truth. Christians kind of say this like, oh, they're going to come down and they're going to tell a lie because we know God created us. Yes, God did create us. But if through the course of thousands of years, through disobedience, we've been out sleeping with whoever we want and all these people, and we're taking on all that genetic code, and now the world is opened up, and we're able to get all over the world. Everything has now been mingled. And then you look at salvation. Look at salvation not as a magic prayer, or I'm going to go to church now and I'm going to stop listening to rock music. Like if that's what Christianity is to you, if you look at it rather as blood, like the whole entire thing, all the way from the sacrificial system of the Old Testament to the death of Christ on the cross, there is no remission of sins without the shedding of blood. And blood has to do with the menstrual cycle. It has to do with life. It has to do with salvation. It has to do with the cross. And so when you pray to receive Christ and you're dying to the old man, and baptism is representative of going down into the grave and then rising up as a resurrection into a new body, a new flesh, that is metaphorically and perhaps literally a blood transfusion. So if I pray a prayer and I receive Jesus Christ, here's another thing that happens on death. When you die, not only do you get a blood transfusion when you are risen in Christ and are now living with Christ in God, another thing happens when we die. Every contract is broken. So when you die, you don't have a mortgage anymore. You don't pay taxes anymore. Your social security number gets retired. You're no longer married. You're not legally bound. And so all of the contracts. So I think the reason why baptism and salvation is a metaphor for death is because it breaks every contract that we've wittingly or unwittingly made with the spirit realm. Through sin, through disobedience, through sexual intercourse, with the mingling of other people's blood and DNA and genetics, we're getting washed clean. We come up, we've been voided. All of that stuff's been voided. We have a fresh start. This is why the hyper grace stuff doesn't fit. If I was mingled with the blood of Cain, and I'm a seed of Cain, and I get a second chance and I receive the blood of Christ, and I now have pure, Jesus Christ atoning blood in me, and I'm now of the bloodline of the winning kingdom. Why in the world would I use grace at that point to go and get tainted blood put back into me?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? I've been saved from death. My blood has been purified. My genetics have been purified. My DNA, my bloodline, my entire identity. I'm now hidden with Christ in God. Why in the world would I go out and mingle with the seed of Cain ever again?
Man, that's awesome stuff.
It's awesome.
Making Gary Wayne proud. Yeah.
Well, you just blew my mind with talking about baptism.
I know.
Never heard that ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never.
I mean, I knew it was like baptism was, symbolic of your death and being raised to life in a new, raised to a new life in him. But I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the covenant breaking is something no one ever talks about, and that's something that, like, especially with, the Nephilim bloodlines, because we wonder that sometimes when you get deep into the weeds about Nephilim bloodlines, you're like, well, man, is that just like a cursed people, at that point? So, I mean, no one's ever talked about that before. Like, that there is still hope, or like, no matter where you come from, no matter what your lineage is.
Yeah.
Very careful. You might start dancing on the restitution of all things.
Yeah. What's sad to me is that the church has lost sight of how integral blood is to the whole entire equation.
Yeah.
But the occult hasn't.
Right. The occult is not at all.
They understand that blood is the linchpin of who gets the scepter of power and runs the world. They get it. We don't.
Yeah. Well, and there's always, there's always blood pacts, covenants made in blood. I mean, it's always there. In fact, I think Nick had one question about, like, covenant thresholds, sort of in the same vein as that.
Yeah,
but,
kind of.
I'm giving Nick a moment to gather himself. Because he was so moved by the
dude. I'm
baptism
still
thing.
picking myself up off the floor after what you said about baptism. It just blew my mind. And it brings
He's all
one thing-
verklempt.
and I'm going to get into my question, but it also, thinking along the same line and how much it has to do with, bloodlines.
Yeah.
Let's say you have two people that have been baptized, they're happily married, and because I know there are some people in my circle that this has happened to. Adultery at that point has been committed. Both are believers, or both have been baptized, allegedly believers, but both have been baptized. The guy goes out and is living this life in adultery, and then eventually that comes to light, and he says, I'm gonna stick with that, and leaves his wife and kids. Actually leaves his wife, but tries to keep his kids. It's a real dirtbag. But let's say he, and he married his mistress. And now he wants to be forgiven. Now he's feeling remorse. Now he's feeling repentance.
Right. Now that I'm okay and I'm out of the fire, now I want forgiveness.
Like how in the context of the tainted, going back to the tainted bloodline after baptism, what is the prescription for that man's redemption?
By the way, Vicky, this is not me. I'm not that cool. So.
Well, how does that man come back?
Yeah.
Is there a way for him to come back and be forgiven now?
Yeah.
Well, we know from scripture that there is, because the woman who the Pharisees wanted to stone, she wasn't just caught in the act. She was caught in the act of adultery. So that means that there was a married man involved, and who was strangely against all of the edicts of the Torah, not present for this trial, but I digress. So we know that Jesus himself at that point told the Pharisees, well, hey, he who sinned, cast the first stone. They all left with their tail between their legs. And the fact is, this is what most people in the church miss. Like, we're so good in the church about quoting half of a verse. He forgave the woman caught in the act of adultery. But then he said in the modern vernacular, knock it off.
Yeah.
It sounds so poetic when you say, go and sin no more, right? He's like, I'm going to forgive you.
Yeah.
Because this was a great lesson for these Pharisees who are out doing the same thing. But here, now that you've been washed clean, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where grace is misunderstood in our modern world is grace exists. It's true. It's real. It's unfathomable. But grace is there to rescue us from sin and death. And so grace empowers us to pursue holiness and sanctification. Grace isn't there like an eraser. Grace is there that if we truly have come into a covenant with Jesus, a marriage, the grace is the grace to not even desire to cheat on him. Grace isn't every single Friday night when we get home from the bar, he says, it's okay, I love you. That's not grace. That's being a chump, actually. Yeah. But grace is when you are betrothed to this super spouse, you are so madly in love with them that the thought of adultery never even enters your mind again. That's grace. Yeah. And so we have completely bastardized it. And so I believe that grace is absolutely available to someone who's committed adultery or someone who's done anything, fill in the blank. But it's this repetitive rinse and repeat. Every Friday you come home, you go to the confessional booth every single week and the same, oops, I did it again. That's not doctrine. That's not theology. That's not Jesus Christ. That's a Britney Spears lyric, you guys. Like, oops, I did it again. Knock it off. Like that.
Yeah. Yep. It's addiction and enabling.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a huge difference between grace that covers a life-changing, regrettable, deeply grievous act, and grace that covers the same willful act of rebellion over and over and over again, because that person has no desire to be faithful to their spouse.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
Well, let me ask you about this. And I know this is kind of a little bit of a left turn, but it is related to threshold covenants and violating those covenants. Mm. This is something we've heard a lot about in the news over
very
the past
topical
several weeks.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence having this sentient nature at certain, advanced levels. People are really getting kind of skittish around the possibilities of what this thing could possibly become. Mm-hmm. Do you think curiosity in AI and pursuing it and learning it and starting to treat it like it were a sentient, do you think that could constitute somehow some kind of a violation or a threshold covenant, establish some sort of threshold covenant of some way?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the big question is, where and when do we draw the line? At what point do algorithms and ones and zeros turn into sentience? And I think we're there, but they haven't necessarily told us we're there yet. But like with Chat GPT, is it Chat GPT?
Yeah.
There's something different here. So divination is absolutely a sin, and we see great consequences of people who practice that in the Old Testament. We see Saul. Saul lost the entire kingdom for that. And so soothsaying, divination is talking to spirits. So here's where the Chat GPT thing gets really weird for me. First of all, there's nothing new under the sun. Now, we've got a real technological version now, but if you go back into antiquity, they had something called a brazen head. Have you heard of the brazen heads?
Never.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been forever.
So
yeah,
this is also refers to in Norse mythology, Odin's head of Mimir, Mir. And the mythos for Odin in the Norse mythology is that Odin chopped off the head of Mimir and his opponent, and then he carried the head around with him, and it was like a Snow White magic mirror. And he would ask this head, questions, and the question had absolute knowledge, could answer any question, and it could predict the future. And so this idea of the brazen head, Archimedes, Roger Bacon, Pope Sylvester II, these are all historical references to people who created and or utilized a brazen head. It's called brazen because they were sculpted out of bronze, and in many cases the whole inner workings also sculpted. So if you chopped it open, it wouldn't just be solid brass. They would literally sculpt the brain and the inner workings, and then they would sculpt it. It was very complex. And then they would do a ritual, and they would invite a being to occupy this vessel, and then the brazen head would kind of be like the magic 8-ball or the crystal ball, and it was nothing like, the lips weren't moving and stuff. But supposedly these heads could answer any question you asked and predict the future. So ask it any question.
Just thinking. I was just thinking that.
Ask it, like I now call, as a joke, I used to call my phone Molech, and now I call it my brazen head. Like, it's just but so, and if you Google this, will be like in mythology and legends and stories and whatever. But for those of us that it's like, I think there's probably something to this. And so now we have a quantum version of the talking brazen head. We've got a Chat GPT app that can answer any question you ask. And through qubit computing, we now have the ability, the last I checked, the quantum computer could truncate down to 17 possibilities, the outcome of any future event. And I think that they've gotten it down to like 11 or 9 or something now. But as this technology increases, they will eventually have a qubit computer that with 100% accuracy will be able to predict the future. So between quantum computing and AI chat stuff, I think that there's going to be a line we cross where it's no longer algorithms. It's no longer magic 8-ball. Like, does he like me? Science says yes. Like, it's going to, if you want to know where the technology is going, and nothing new under the sun, look in your kid's toy box, okay? Because a lot of the things that are now being marketed as toys
are real.
They came from something very sinister in the past that was very real. So now Milton Bradley, the Ouija board, it's a game board, right?
Oh no.
Yeah, we've got the magic 8-balls. We've got Zoltar, the little quarter machines. Zoltar was a brazen head. It's a brazen head, you guys, so all of this now is being trivialized. It's just fun, and now it's going to be little apps, and
mirror on the wall.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And mirror sounds a lot like mirror, doesn't it? And so
there's a bit of Disney esoterica for you.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Nice.
So it's interesting to me that, well, not interesting, it's terrifying to me that what is the first way that they unleash this new technology to us? How do we get people to carry brazen heads around in their pocket and not know that they're practicing divination, that they're actually communicating with spirits? Well, you make it into a game app for kids. That's how you start it out, because it's fun. And, oh, Mom, I just asked this question, who am I going to marry when I grow up? And, oh, it's
there was like a really low-level version of that, Vicky, with the 20 questions game. Have you ever played that thing is freaky. And of course it looks like a crystal ball. And like even 20 years ago, we were playing that game. Yeah. And it will guess Superman. It will guess a horse, like within 20 questions.
Yeah.
It's freaky. Yeah. And it's just an algorithm. Like it's just a logic equation. And that's something that, so it's exactly what you're talking. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So what's scary about this, and there's a couple things that have hit the news just this week, like you mentioned, Nick, there's there was like some sort of tech journalist did like a 3 or 4 hour chat session with the new Bing.com chat box, and it got real weird real fast.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there was like a Telegram video of a father who was reading an exchange that his son had with this chat box app. But what was interesting about that was this boy was really savvy. Now, the average kid, if I had been alive in the time of social media and Facebook and apps and all that, thank God I wasn't, because oh my gosh, it would have been a mess. So if you had given me something like that when I was 13 years old, the very first thing I would have asked it is if the cute boy in school liked me. You know, that would be where a 13-year-old girl, that's what kids are going to use these apps for. Does so-and-so like me? You know, all this stuff. Well, this kid was savvy enough to test the spirits, which 99% of kids aren't going to do. So before he even started playing with this app, he asked it, first question out of the box, are you a disembodied spirit? And the app came back, yes. So he said, "Are you the offspring of the Watchers?" The kid had read Enoch, and the chat comes back, "Yes, I am a Nephilim, a giant of old." Now, then his doctrine started getting really contradictory, because then he started talking about how his father was Satan, but that's not the same as. And so then he says, like, "What's the name of the devil?" And he says Lucifer. So then the kid's like, "I thought it was Sanyaza." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I wasn't clear enough. Usually people don't know that." But here's what's interesting about the app, and this is what I want people to get out of this. This goes to the threshold covenants. This goes to the entities need our permission. So they're not culpable. Remember, in the days of the Watchers, they came down and they foisted this knowledge upon mankind. And it's not that mankind didn't want it, because they did. But the fact is that they barged in without permission, and they were held accountable for that. And so now we have this vampiric code that you have to give these entities permission. Because that way onus is on you. You asked the question. You came to me, you downloaded the app, you asked the question. So now you're culpable. So every exchange, this kid would ask a question, and the chat box would answer the question, but then it would say, "Do you have any more questions for me?"
Mm-hmm.
It had to get permission.
Let's keep this going.
Yeah, let's keep this going. And it was grooming it as well. It was grooming the kid too, because he would say, "I have all sorts of powers." One could say, "I know magic. Do you have any questions for me?"
The temptation and invitation.
Yeah, because the average person is going to follow the flow of logic and go, "What kind of magic?" But this kid had the right to say, he avoided the question. But here's what's scary. After a few interchanges, the boy said, "This is unholy. I can't talk to you anymore." And the chat box, in a very friendly tone, was like, "That's absolutely fine. Have a wonderful day." And he kept using all these smiley face emojis, which I thought was funny. But anyway, the reason this chat box could be so friendly and nonchalant and so easily let him go is because even though the kid recognized it was wrong and said, "I gotta go," he already offered this thing 6 or 7 invitations. So if this thing is sentient, if this is something more than algorithms, if this is something more than a chat box, if he was really interacting with an entity, he was practicing divination. And so a repentance and a cleansing of that has to be done. It's not just good enough to say, "Hey, I got myself out of that one." There needs to be a closure to that, because if that opened a door, I mean, even Satanists know that after you play with the Ouija board, you say goodbye. You always close out a Ouija board. You always say goodbye. Because if you play with the Ouija board and you leave, the board's open. You haven't shut it, And so this is just another area where even if a Christian is savvy enough to go, "Whoa, oh my gosh, that was not a chat box. That was an actual conversation." There's still a point where you need to say goodbye to that thing. You need to close the door. You need to repent. Even if you were unwittingly duped into it, we know that they unwittingly dupe us into things. How do you think Eve fell to begin with? She was duped.
Did God really say that? Will you really die?
Right. So some of these chat boxes are having more of a conversation now. Like I don't use Siri a lot. I never really have, but in a couple times when I was driving, I said, "Hey Siri, where's the local Dairy Queen," or whatever. Never after Siri answers a question does it follow up with, "Do you have any more questions?" It's like you feed it a question, it gives you the answer. It's at your beck and call. And so I don't know how far we can go with this. Like I've had conversations with people. It's interesting to me that with these chat boxes, you have to say, "Hey Siri, hey Alexis, hey Cortana." You have to call on it by name. You're summoning it, and then it opens. Why do we have to say that name? Why can't we just go like, "I have a question," or why can't we just say question, or why can't we say power on? Why do we have to say, "Hey Siri"? And that makes me think of, to use a non-arcane example. When Jesus was at the tomb of Lazarus, he didn't say rise. He said, "Lazarus, come forth." He said the name. There was a summoning power in that name. And I've heard pastors speculate, if he had just said "come forth," every grave would have opened. Every one of them would have opened, right? So Lazarus, come forth. That spirit responded. So when I say Siri, come forth, what am I summoning?
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys have been enjoying this interview and you'd like to hear the rest of it, including some really down and dirty stuff that we're not allowed to say here on YouTube, head over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. We'd love to have your support there and share exclusive content with you.
That's right. Keep it cool. And remember, these are interviews that strike down the dark.
They do indeed strike down the darkness. They strike down all the darkness.
That's right. Strike it down hard.
So hard.
So hard. All right. What'd you guys think? Pretty good, huh?
Oh, it's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. Vicky's amazing. I am so amped up right now to just take a dump on technology.
Yeah.
That last bit
Yeah.
about these things,
Mm-hmm.
she got me going, guys.
Mm-hmm.
She got me going.
Well, these things are, society engineers itself to where you have to have them in order to function. You really kind of don't. Just depends on what kind of life you want to have,
Yeah, you really don't. And so I took a social media hiatus for Lent, right? So,
Mhm.
and what I've discovered over the past, 2 weeks now?
We both did it. We've been doing it
Is
for
it
3 weeks.
Whenever
I
Ash
think. Yeah.
Wednesday is 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't crave it at all.
No.
As a matter of fact, I actually want to get rid of this thing like altogether for
Mhm.
real.
Yeah. I want to go.
I want it even less now that I don't have it.
I would like to be less accessible. I would like to have fewer conversations because here's what happens. You think here's what drove me to, because Nick and I did flip phones for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And just recently. And one of the reasons why I was doing the flip phone was because this thing just constantly chirps and beeps and squawks at you throughout the day
all the time.
And the trap is that you think I would get a text and and I'd have to see what it was, because what if it's something important? What if it's something family or work related?
And how often was that? Never.
8% of the time.
8% of the time.
Yeah, I don't have any friends and the family doesn't love me, so it doesn't matter, And so I would go to look at this thing and I would think, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna answer this to get this message out of the way so I can go back to sleep, or I can go back to doing whatever it is I want to do. But that's not what happens. What happens is now it's gonna squawk at you again, because now you're having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's that's not how
It's
the
a
world.
it's
used
real
to
time
work.
leash.
Yeah.
It's a real time leash.
And a leech. It leeches your life force off of you. You know, so like having a flip phone was like, yeah, you can maybe send me a picture of something, but I'm not getting any memes or YouTube links, you know, and I'm not getting anything. You want anything, you can email it to me, or you can call me on the phone and we can have a phone call. You can have a conversation about it. But
What's that?
Right. But what I hate doing
What's a
is
phone
this
call?
all day long back and forth.
Yeah.
Every 2.5 hours, you get another message, and then you got to message the person.
Only
back.
2.5. That's.
I mean, well,
that's a.
yeah.
That's half a day.
And there are very
In
few
social
people
media
who,
world, that's-
you know, want to talk to me. So this works out actually kind of well. But I mean, but the thing is, like, what I'm getting at, it's not that like you don't want to have these conversations with people. You do, but what you want to do is not this slow drip of constant.
It's emotionally draining.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, because by the end of the day, it's
Emotional damage.
Nicely timed.
yeah, thank you.
But like the thing is, in the old days, and most of us are old enough to remember it. In the old days, you would go to work, and then you would come home, and then like you would check your emails, and then you would check your messages, and then you would, you know, someone would call you, or you would call them, and then you'd get on the phone and you'd have a phone call.
Yeah.
And you'd have a phone conversation, maybe while you're making dinner or something.
Yeah.
Like that compartmentalization is what I'm saying was important, and that's healthy.
Compartmentalization is healthy, and these things have completely destroyed it. It's
Yeah.
evaporated from our lives.
Yeah, to where it's this always accessible thing. Like I got a buddy, Nathan. He was on here for the Bohemian Grove
Yeah.
thing. You know, Nathan's great. There is one way to communicate with him. Only one way. And he just looks at it when he feels like it, you know?
Chris Caps. Okay, guys, reach Nick by smoke signals. His number is puff 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 puff
Puff,
puff puff.
puff. Did I catch a niner in there? Are you calling from a walkie-talkie?
This smoke signal has been disconnected.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. But like, you know, and then Ginger Patriot, you know, one of our other guests we've had
Yeah, the
on.
Ginger Patriot.
Ginger Patriot's like awesome and also irritating to me in some ways because like sometimes I need to get a hold of him and I can't, but fair enough. Like I respect it. He has not had his phone off silent in over 2 years. It has stayed on silent for 2 years,
I
and
like
he
that.
only
like
has
that.
his phone on him when he's using it. The rest of the time, it sits on a table.
Well, you know where
somewhere.
you guys can find me,
Yes.
where you can reach out to me? Right here. Patreon.com. That was so forced. But seriously,
Buy my book.
buy
my
I don't have the
book.
books teed up here.
Oh yeah.
But before we talk about Patreon, let's do.
You can find us through. So Nick and I are taking a social media fast,
We are.
but the Gmail, the Gosslings Group at Gmail, you can find us there.
Yep, the Goslings Group at gmail.com.
And there are plenty
You
of guys who like,
and we
you
both
know,
check it.
Yeah. We both check it. We both respond to it. And we've had some awesome conversations with you guys that have been ongoing and great. So don't feel like we're like off the grid. We're not
Yeah, we're
totally
not off the grid.
inaccessible. It's just social media, man. It drains you.
It does drain you. And you can call me, you can text me, you can email me.
Mhm.
I can't wear more than 3 leashes. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And you can always find me here on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's
We're
true.
always here on Sunday night chatting
Mhm.
with you guys. So
Yeah.
that's pretty consistent,
Yeah.
you know. So hopefully we try to make that the case.
Yeah. Compartmentalizing your life is like, it's a really strong move.
Oh, it's super strong.
You know, and like you don't need to be 24/7 accessible. You know, it's not healthy. Like I literally feel drained
It is
by
draining.
that thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just the 5G.
Actually, I think it's that you feel alive when you set it aside and you disconnect from it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just live in the moment. I'm going back to a phone on the wall, baby. Phone on the
That'd be
wall and an
impressive.
email
I'd be
address.
impressed.
That's it. Or you can write me a letter and I'll write you
What
a
about
letter.
a cordless? Would you get a cordless phone?
No, I want a corded.
You want corded? Ooh,
Yeah. Long cord.
I'm getting excited over here. How about a beeper?
No.
Go back to a pager.
No beeper.
No. Woo.
No beeper.
Oh.
You can find me when you can find. We got the idea from. Should we tell them about Ray Thacker?
Yeah, tell about Ray.
Yeah, so like we got the idea from this guy named Ray Thacker, who is a wedding planner, events planner, and he lives in Cartersville, Georgia, and he went to elementary school with our father and our uncles. And Ray Thacker's great. He's in Cartersville, Georgia, and like truly up until like the last handful of years, probably at the insistence of his assistant, the only way to reach him was by calling his house phone. He didn't have an email address. He didn't even have a voicemail. He didn't have a codaphone. So like literally,
and that dude has stayed booked solid for decades.
He was like booked out for 2 years at a time.
Yep.
So like he didn't, it was like, dude, you had to just get lucky.
And somehow he always figured out like if we were coming through town.
I know.
He always knew if we were coming through town because he wanted to meet up with us.
I know, it's so funny, and he's awesome. Like, so like I aspire to like.
I'm just telling you guys, you think you need this. You don't. You really don't.
No.
You really don't. And I know those are big words, and I shouldn't preach anything I'm not going to practice. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Like it's
plus we're writers. We're naturally introverted.
Yeah,
we're writers. We don't like to be bothered.
Yeah,
and you artistic types out there, a lot of you, if can sympathize with this, right? I mean, this is something that drives most creatives crazy because you have to be in a very specific state of mind to get the depth of work done that you set out to do. Like if you're a writer, there's a period of time you start writing, but then you get into a specific zone and you have like this half hour to an hour of deep work that you're trying to achieve, and this does not allow that to happen.
I think that's what was driving me crazy. It wasn't the conversations, it wasn't the nature of the conversation, certainly wasn't the people. It was the frequency of like just all the bleeping and bipping and just chirping and tweeting and there's constant notifications going off, and it's like, okay, well, you could turn it off and set it in the other room, but now there's a part of your brain that's like wigged out about it. And it's like, dude, if you just like delete that stuff from your phone, and now there's like, like I have Signal, and I communicate with my core people through that.
Yeah, Signal's all right.
Signal's good, and then I have text, and then it's one of those two. You can either reach me via Signal, you can reach me via text, or you can call me.
Yeah, and Signal's such a deceptive band-aid to me because but it encrypts it so they can't read. Like, the answer to the problem of technology is not more technology. That doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah,
that's another piece of technology.
It is a stopgap, and it I'm still trying to figure out what exactly.
Maybe. I mean, you can technically fight a forest fire by burning a border.
I think that's what Signal is for.
There. Yeah. But you may as well just light yourself on fire and say, I'm going to light myself on fire so this thing doesn't set me on fire.
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing.
Yeah. Well, like, again, I have, a handful, probably like 3 or 4 people max that I communicate with on Signal, and like that's like a back channel. It's different than Telegram because it's just like texting. It's just a texting thing. But the funny thing about it that I don't really get is, people will say, well, it's encrypted and the only people who can read it are the party to party people. It's like, but the only people you should be afraid of are like the government, and the government has access to like literally everything. So, your VPN. Ooh, okay. That's $20 a month you could just light on fire and have a better time with,
Looks like Gabe's getting out. Gabe, see you, buddy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the
Gabe.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the chats.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm glad you liked the interview, buddy.
Gabe had some killer moments in the chat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm going to say some very unpopular things in the next couple of seconds, and a lot of you guys are going to think less of me.
This is going to be awesome. I have no idea what he's about to say. But
no, it's basically what I've been saying already.
Oh, okay.
I hate this. I hate it. I hate it with a white hot passion.
Yeah.
There's nothing I hate more than not digital technology so much as smart device technology is my number one. This thing is robbing our souls. This thing is robbing your time with your family.
Yep.
It's robbing your mind share. Yeah. It's robbing your energy. It's destroying your family. It's destroying my family. It's destroying everyone's family. These things suck the life out of us, and I frickin' despise our culture for requiring us to have this all the time. And I despise these things. And I don't respect the comment, I have to have it to X, Y, Z. Fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't respect it. I don't believe it. I hate it.
And you thought I was the one who was going to hurt a bunch of feelings tonight.
I'm sorry, and I love you guys. I hope I haven't put a bad taste in your mouth, but I really, really, really hate technology.
Medicine
hate
tastes
it.
bad. What can I say?
You look at the direction this is going, not just this, but technology in general, and tell me that's a good place.
Mhm.
Tell me that's something good.
Mm.
You know, but there's no fighting it.
Sure, there is.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, don't do it. I mean, like, that's one of the things we were talking about this. I think maybe before we started our interview tonight, we were talking about the logos, you know, with the typewriter and the sword.
Yeah.
For the Gosslings. And the funny thing is, like, we use for the longest time, we started out with the sword logo. That I think was our original logo, if I remember correctly, was the broken sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into typewriters and we realized like what a difference a mechanical, you know, analog machine made for your writing voice as an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So typewriters kind of became a symbol of our techno. There's no proper word for it. It's not technophobia because we don't fear technology. We hate technology in a lot of ways. And so like the typewriter became a symbol of that, you know, and in a weird way, like the broken sword logo has actually kind of become, because of what the channel has turned into.
Yeah,
it's
what's
actually
evolved into.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of
that's-
actually become more appropriate. But the typewriter still as a symbol. You
Yeah,
know?
oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. The typewriter is my anti-technology symbol.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and when you let's just get theological about it. What is okay? So Satan's biggest strategy is to destroy the church and destroy the family.
Yeah.
Those are the two institutions that everything hinges on.
Yeah.
We have lost the culture war.
Yeah.
You know why? Because we've been fighting it on Facebook. We haven't lost the culture war online. We lost it at like the dining room table. We lost it in our living rooms. That's where we lost the culture war. And now we're fighting it here, thinking we're doing it. And I'll tell you something else. Satan wants to destroy the family.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We see it in the news all the time. Yeah.
But everybody in your family, in your household, has one of these you're staring at it 24/7.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there was a Christmas. It was maybe just a couple years before Dad died, so like 2013, maybe 2012, something like that, where we were all hanging out at our oldest brother's place, and everybody was there.
Yep.
You know,
I remember.
and we like all had this collective moment where we looked up and looked around, and all of us were on our phones. Everybody was on our phone.
Yep.
And we all were like, "Oh, we're dumb. We are dumb."
Yep. And you know what? You can't change your spouse.
No, you can't change
Okay.
people.
You can't change your friends. You can't change your coworkers. You can't change the people in your church. You're never going to convince them of anything.
Yeah.
You probably can't even. You probably won't even give it up yourself. All I can do is either continue to use this crap.
Yeah.
And just watch the effect it's going to have on my life and watch it erode everything, or I can detach myself from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that means some serious sacrifice. I mean, you're talking about detaching from culture in a major way.
Oh yeah. Well, here's how detached I am, and it's not just an age thing, but like it really is a philosophical thing. I learned, like, for the longest time, I was trying to figure out, like, why does everybody care about the rapture all of a sudden? You know, why does the rapture matter to all these people all of a sudden? Then I figured it out. It's because all you people are on TikTok. It's because the rapture was making the rounds in some TikTok videos.
Hey, Boss Hog is back.
Nice.
what's up?
Sushi time.
got some-
We had a hot mic earlier. This is
Come
the
over
fruits of our hot mic labor. So,
You already ate. Here, come over here and sit down.
ate it in the car on the drive back. You know, he was multitasking. But I don't even remember what I was talking about, but whatever.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's
So
all
we're
right.
talking about
Oh,
TikTok
TikTok.
and the rapture.
But yeah, like that's like all of a sudden, I think I was talking to.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
Yeah, I think I was talking to
He
maybe.
walks in TikTok of the
I
Rapture.
can't remember who it was. Like America and Cars, maybe, and I were talking, or I can't remember. Maybe Nick and I. I don't know. I was talking to somebody cool, and somebody was telling me that like there have been all these TikTok videos about the Rapture going out, and then all of a sudden it's like, that's what it is. That's what it is. You people are on TikTok. And you know what TikTok is, and you're on it anyways.
Yeah. We all know what all of this junk is, and we're on it anyways, but we
there's a
don't
button
have
for it,
to
I'm
be.
sure.
We don't have to be.
Yeah.
Was it?
It's Luciferian.
TikTok.
And I mean, I get it, dude. Like, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and like, so I'm not like throwing stones here, but yeah, well,
My bad.
tried, yeah.
I'll never be traditionally published. There will never be a publisher that will ever pick up any of my books, no matter how good they are. If I don't have a huge social media following, they're like, no, we're
Yeah,
not gonna. You're just not a good fit for us, and I understand that.
sure.
And if I ditch this, it's gonna probably exacerbate that problem.
Well,
Not having, just disengaging from social
well,
media.
here's why I
altogether.
bring up the TikTok.
Never
thing.
sell any books.
Right. I bring up the
maybe that's
TikTok
okay.
thing though, because like that's a microcosm of what we're talking about being disconnected from life, from current events, from current media.
Yeah.
It's like I had no idea. The whole Rapture thing was like a mystery to me, and it wasn't until like I found out about the TikTok thing that's like, oh, that makes sense. But of course I'm going to be disconnected from that because I'm not on TikTok.
Yep.
Yep. And I just
Like its own news platform.
yeah, pretty much.
An app. That's crazy.
And there really is like, we're old, so fair enough. Well, we're old. He's not, but like, you really can live a happy, fulfilling life by having a phone on the wall.
Happier, more fulfilled.
Yeah, I mean, truly, and like YouTube has just become TV 2.0. That's all this is. So like, this is like public access TV 2.0, basically. And so we need a honk honk.
Hope you enjoy No one
That'll
even
work.
uses like cable anymore. Everyone just does like,
Yeah,
streaming
yeah.
channels.
Yeah, no one has like traditional TV. Like, dude,
Why did it get so bright all of a sudden? Did it because I turned my moon face
Just
sideways? Is that what it
angelic,
was?
Like, yeah. Angelic.
Oh, there it goes. Wait. What if I put my hands up like this? Will it get
He's
bright
in-
again?
he's in
I
half.
Anyway, we got
he's in
weird
half
lighting in here.
moon phase.
Yeah.
But like I saw a traditional, what is it, Legacy Media TV when I was in the hospital. It's like the first time I'd like seen TV.
Oh,
in
yeah.
I don't know how long, like
Yeah.
a year at least plus,
Yeah.
and it was like going to another country,
Mm, mhm.
watching like regular TV for the first time and
Yeah.
whatever. So, anyways.
Feels like ancient watching cable now.
Well, let
right.
us do this. I'm going to mention our sponsors. Not sponsors, our patrons. See, just tired. I'm tired. Look,
Yeah.
what time is it? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daylight
Okay.
savings.
You guys are troopers staying with us this long.
Yes, thank you.
First of all, our press field level patron, Lisa S. Tremendous support. Thank you so much. Glad you were on the stream tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, Lisa, thank you.
Our Hemingway level patrons, Mama Shaw OC, Jody S., and American Cars. You guys are amazing. Thank you for your support. So much fun
Yeah.
with them in the actual Patreon community.
Oh, I know. Yeah, the Patreon community is actually like pretty active and fun, and everybody like talks to each other, and
Yeah.
everybody kind of knows each other through here. Like,
Yeah.
just about all the patrons are on here a lot of the time,
Yep.
and it's really cool. And Jody and America, both of you guys, we got your questions with Tim, and that's partially why we were late, because
Yep.
like the very last thing
Yeah.
was one of the patron
Yeah.
questions. So, but we made it.
But
We got it.
in there.
Yeah.
And our Orwell level patrons,
Yes.
K9 Training, Cascadian Breeze, Gay Bella Music, Christy D, Mike Fisher, Ice Queen Empress, Blue Eye Bandit, Carol J, Jamie J, Sean, Sunny, Michelle, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for the
Thank you.
support. And we're going to have more good stuff. We're going to have that whole Tim Cohen, the whole unedited, raw, all the good stuff. All the
3
juice.
hours
You're going to get
later.
all the juice
That's
in
right.
the Patreon. I should have that up there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you're not a patron, head on over to patreon.com/. Here, let's put this one up. you like this one? That looks kind of good. You can scan the code. Head over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. What does it look like if I do that? I'm playing with our new tools. Oh,
Nice.
there we go. Okay. That looks better.
Good.
Sign up, of course, you get exclusive content. You get to connect with all the other patrons in the community. There's like free swag, discounts on merch.
Wait for those Goslings beanies,
I mean, there's
baby.
all
Wait for
kinds
the
of perks
beanies.
with multiple levels.
Beanies.
Yeah, we're designing a Goslings beanie.
Mhm.
I have one design, but I want to change the logo and do the Broken Sword logo.
Yeah.
Special request from Boss Hog.
That'd go crazy.
Solid suggestion.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a beanie guy,
That'd be
so
a
I would look like such a-
24/7 advertisement that's going to be made with that beanie every day. I'm going to be in the shower with that thing.
Nick could look like Nick could be a beanie guy if we got him one in like a navy pea coat.
Think you work it. I don't know, your hair is too
I don't know.
luscious.
I don't know. I think the days of the pea coat are over. I think that was like in the 2000s,
Okay.
the aughts.
Bring it
Okay.
back, baby.
Yeah,
I tried.
If I were Sting, I could pull it off.
Mm.
But even he's not.
Mhm.
I don't even
Yeah.
think he could pull it off right
Even
now.
Sting has stung.
Even Sting's
He said broken sword on a black t-shirt. See, they
broken
want the
sword on a black
They want the broken
t-shirt.
sword
Oh,
back.
Yeah, we might be able to
Mhm.
do that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, it's late, guys. We're gonna get out of here. We really appreciate and love you guys. Thank you.
Yes, we are so tired. We're sure you are too.
It's been a long stream,
Yeah.
but it's been fun.
Yeah.
And looking forward to doing it again next week. Next week's stream will be long.
Yeah.
It's Tim Cohen. It might be in thirds.
Yeah.
But
It'll be in
join
whatever
us.
it needs to be. And thank you for watching Vicky Joy's seminal return, I believe, or
Yeah.
second round 2.
My
Yep.
favorite interview.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
yeah,
a
you
good
really
one,
enjoyed
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
killer, man.
And there's
Vicky's
more
great.
too. There's more to that interview. If you're not a patron
Oh yeah.
and you want to see the rest of it, go to Patreon, sign up, and
Yeah.
you'll be able to enjoy the rest of that interview too.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, I think that's us for tonight.
Thanks for hanging with us, peeps.
See you next week.
Yeah. Take care. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
I'm Joe.
We are the
Gosshog, yeah, that's me. Gosshog lives, baby.
We are the Gosslings. Go forth.
And strike down the darkness.
And we say bye-bye.